Hello, everyone. Good morning and welcome to the second day of the National Seminar on Science and Literature. On behalf of the Department of Chemistry, MKBU, and the Department of English, Maharaja Krishna Kumar CG, Bhavnagar University, I warmly welcome you all to all the sessions which we have now scheduled today. Before we begin the proceedings and welcoming the guests, I request you all to stand up for the university song. Thank you. Please take your seats. First, to welcome our invited expert and guest, Professor Dr. Pragnesh Dave sir, I request Professor J.P. Mehta sir to come up on the stage. Thank you, sir. Next, to welcome Mr. Aaron George. Sorry if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly. Assistant Professor at Christ deemed to be University, Pune Lavasa campus. I request Dr. Dilip Bharat, sir. Thank you, sir. We will now move towards the first plenary session address for the day. Just a second. And I invite Ms. Megha Trivedi to introduce our first plenary speaker, Professor Pragnesh Dave sir.
Good morning to everyone. It is our privilege to introduce Professor Pragnesh Dave sir, who is currently serving as a professor in the Department of Chemistry at Sardar Patel University, Vallabh Vidyanagar. With more than 27 years of experience in teaching and research, he has made remarkable contribution in the fields of nanotechnology, green chemistry, and wastewater treatment. He has published over 200 research papers, authored several books and book chapters, and has been recognized among the top 2% scientists worldwide by Stanford University. He has also received several prestigious awards, including the Gujarat Science Academy Postgraduate Science Teacher Award. Sir, we warmly welcome and invite you here. Stage is yours. Thank you.
A very good morning to all of you. Now it is indeed my pleasure to present before you. Now, before I will commence my talk, let me thank very profusely my our own friend JP Mehta sir, Gudani sir, Joshi sir, Dilip Bharat sir for inviting me to deliver a talk. I congratulate both Department of English and Department of Chemistry to really come to close together. And it is a stimulating in a sense that because till now we are living in our own bubble, chemistry think in its own way, literature and English people can think their own way. But this is a unique opportunity to amalgamate the idea, or one can know that how humanities or literature can fuse with this chemistry idea. So, in that sense, it is a very unique initiative taken by both this department, and this is a true spirit of the NEP 2020. So that's how I congratulate both the department to taking such a initiative, and which would pave the way further for the students of next generation. So I think with this brief note, now I'm coming to the title of our talk. So today's the title. It's a yesterday you must have talked, and different speaker have given their own perspective. So today it's time for me to give my own perspective, because I am not expert in a sense that the science and literature. Partly I can speak about science, but at the same time to speak about literature, and that is a really unique platform. So that being a scientist, how can I think about literature? Or very first question comes to my mind and your mind too, whether science people needs and literature, or vice versa. The literature man needs to understand any science. But today, in a sense of national education policy and all, we are talking something alien. So they really, by the time I will give a talk, and you can realize that the concept is not at all really a new concept, but we have not seen from the different perspective. So I'm keeping certain aspect, how already science and literature are correlated. And very interestingly, I think the hyphen made in this seminar talk, and it's a very, very appropriate. Only literature people can think. And so I give a commendable respect to Dr. Dilip Bharat sir. Science and literature, he put a hyphen and use word stimulative or antagonist. So in a sense that the seminar itself is a stimulative, because it will trigger a new idea into the mind and provides the opportunity to many of you to take up a few papers from the literature, or literature people can take up a few paper or think about the science. I'll give you a certain ideas here. And antagonistic in a sense that what the idea we are trying to talk about, how do we understand the essence of the antagonist? So point I would like broadly to talk before you is, I'll speak much things about science fiction. When I say science, so always science talks about reality. But a moment we talk about a fiction, so fiction is a really imaginary part, or you can call it a antagonistic. So here, this is what we are trying to set a tone of this conference, whether science and literature is a stimulative or antagonist. And I hope by the end of the lecture, I will try to justify the last line, visionary fiction as a catalyst. So from where the vision comes. So really, Dilip Bharat sir and the entire team, Gudani sir, and all, to make a very interesting, very catchy title and the concept notes you formulated. So now we try to understand science and literature. Now, the people sitting here, very young people, we expect young people having a one good habit everyone has to inculcate, and that is a reading habit. Now tell me, how many of you are knowing about the title of this book, Literature and Science? How many of you are knowing from the audience the title of this book? Is anybody? I'm not asking whether anybody has read it or not. I'm just only asking, have you ever heard about the title of the book? Yes, very nice. So from first few batch I can see. And how many of you have read this book? No one, no problem. But anyway, I congratulate those who have at least heard about the title of the book. So this is very important. Okay, so point is, now when we talk about literature, so like literature and science, it seems it's a very divergent view, or we can say that it is a very distinct methodology. So at one hand, when we are talking about literature, and people sitting here can understand that where you are focusing your entire attention, or let's say literature per se itself is a subjective term, and literature involves a lot of human emotion. So it is based on the human experience, whereas science is antagonistic in a sense that it is absolutely objective. So when we say anything is objective, so that depends on certain rules and regulation. So science always follows the rules of the nature and rules of the physical science. So that's how the literature, at one hand, we can say it's a subjective in nature, but at the science, at another hand, it is objective. But really, you can see from the Venn diagram, from the figure, they are merging to one another. And when they are merging to one another, so they share a deeply intertwined relationship. And this is what the objective of the today's is. When science merge with this literature, they influence each other. And the way of influencing by various ways may be based on the themes, how we can communicate, that's a language playing important role, and the context in which we can talk. So cultural role is playing a very important role. So science always provides a new methodology or new tools. So whatever the new methodology we are giving, and this provides a raw material for creation of artistic views. And always artistic views were well taken by the person from the literature. So based on the raw material provided from the science background, it provides ethical context. And based on this ethical context, really a technology is developed. So this book is a very old classical book. I urge to all of you, at least you should try to read this book, and I'll suggest few books. So at least all of you should try to read this book. So this is the purpose here. Now I'll try broadly today to talk about a science fiction. So science, already I set it on, they're based on the law of the nature. At the other end, we are having a fiction, and fiction that only depends on based on the imagination. So how these two things can comes up? So when we say a fiction, we need to understand the meaning of fiction is. So fiction is always depends on the literature, where the role of you people comes into the play. And once you are having a better imagination, how broad you can imagine, and that provides a basis of the future. Therefore, the role of literature is a very vital in order to set a tone for the future. So whatever we are thinking today, it may take a possible shape in the future, and after few years, the year span may be a few months to few years to few decades, but somehow it becomes reality. So we can say that fiction seems improbable now when we talk at this moment, but after lapse of some time, this become reality. So this become a future. So literature, we talk now, maybe imagination, it becomes a tomorrow science. So therefore, the literature and science, they are not at all working in isolation, but really they are merging to one another. So here, this is the what kind of imagination one should make. So the one imagination or one type of fiction, this is a realistic. Again, it is an antagonistic word, real imagination. And another, it's a non-realistic. So when we say realistic fiction, it appears it is untrue, but it could happen. For example, you are trying to relate certain event, like there are certain incidents are there in Ramayana and Mahabharata, where the certain places are there, archaeological places are mentioned, like Delhi was there at that point of time, in Ramayana, Ayodhya was there. So today it is existing. So at this moment, sometimes it looks untrue, but it could actually happen. This is called a realistic fiction. So some event or people or places may be real. Like in Ramayana, we today talk about Sri Lanka. So at that point of time, the country was existing. This is a realistic fiction. So this is the one term, whereas another term, that is a non-realistic fiction. So it is a kind of story. Many story already you must be seeing. Sometimes it may not happen. You can understand, look at to or reading such kind of things. This is a purely fiction. Such kind of things may not be possible. So even you can stretch the boundaries. How long we can believe? Even 2% or 3% kind of things may be a reality. So that you can understand that how it is going away from the conventional reality. This is called non-realistic fiction. So fiction is very, very essential. But when we are trying to join this fiction with this science, so it creates altogether different things. Because we understand that a genre or storytelling, like sir was telling you, you may have event in which some storytelling will be given in SCTP so that you can have some ideas. This is nothing but imagination. So ultimately, this imaginative concept, this create a foundation for science and technology for a future. So this is how the science fiction can work. Science tries to make them into reality. May not be possible right now. Whatever you are imagine is not true. But after some year, it is possible that that become reality. Now you just get back into the 200 years back. Now nobody at that point of time have thought about a train will be possible. And that's how 150 years back, the first steam engine came into the limelight. And then we have seen the journey from steam engine to coal engine to diesel engine. And now today we talk about electrical trains. And from electric trains, we are moving towards the bullet train. And from bullet train to magnetic train based on the levitation concept and so on and so forth. So whatever the things people have not thought, only at that era, if you just get back to 203 years back, people has to walk. But today, you can see now, bus become reality, a train become reality, and within the train, you can see how speed is playing important role. Earlier train, whenever the first train was started, so the distance traveled by first reported train in UK per hours, it was traveling 80 kilometer per mile. That was a maximum speed at that point of time. But now today we understand, and you just look at to the data of China and US, how they are running train. So that is how nobody can believe. So within this span of 100 years, that become reality. So where it was fiction, people at that point of time were thinking, why train is running at 80 kilometers, why it cannot run per kilometer? The speed would be more, maybe 100. If you run with the 100, people can think why it cannot run with the 150, 200, 250. So that's how this is the imagination, but it is a scientific imagination. So you just try to need to understand that scientific fiction, in order to imagine something, ultimately your mind is limit. Whatever you can think become possible. And I will give you a series of illustration how things become possible. So in order to have a better imagination, where the concept of literature can comes into play, because literature is nothing but in a sense that it is a fiction, but whatever the things people are trying to make, science tried to achieve is, and that's how it's become reality. So that is what the science fiction is playing important role. So here there is a series of books I have written, like Star Wars, The Hunger Games, Frankenstein, The Terminator, Wall-E. Now last bullet point, you can see how many one or two books you are knowing. At least the title of the book. I am not asking those who have read the book. Okay, so there is a very good audience I can see here. And you are more informative than me, because at that point of time I am not used to read all kind of the books what the title I am making, but you are so advanced. And I think JP sir, we at that age we were not capable enough to read, and even title we have not heard about this thing. So this is what the imagination become reality. This is the classical example. So this is how the science fiction comes into play. And I hope everybody understand the meaning of genre, those, because literature people are more. So a film genre that uses the science fiction phenomena that are not necessarily accepted by the mainstream science. And the role of scientists is a very crucial. So again, you trace the genre, scientific genre. How many people from literature are working in a scientific genre? Any? Yes, madam, can you tell us what kind of things work you are doing? Please, you can sit, no problem.
I'm a PhD scholar, and currently I'm working in a science fiction in biotechnological enhancement specifically. And I have chosen the novels by Aldous Huxley, Brave New World, and Frankenstein also. So I'm recently joined in a PhD, but currently I'm working on this genre. Yeah. I am from Bhavnagar, but I am currently joined as a scholar in Junagadh University.
Keep on working with this idea. So I think this is the idea, like those who are from literature. So this is the wonderful idea she are working on. I don't know what is her plan is, maybe on ethics or what kind of work she will do. But if you look at to the scientific fiction, and first reported book in a scientific fiction is A Trip to the Moon in 1902. And I think, JP sir, wherever you sent me the first draft and you gave me the name of this person about Jane Millis. So he was the person. The first book, scientific fiction, was reported, A Trip to the Moon in 1902. And this is the pioneering 40 minutes French silent film. And on YouTube, this movie is available. 14 minutes video, very simply, everybody should try to see how. So point is, if you can look at to this thing, so instead of extrapolating your idea, you interpolate your idea. So then you can come to know that in 19th century, how people was thinking about science in terms of the literature. So that idea for many of you are new. Even you are listening to this idea from 40 minutes movie, you can see, then you can come to know that how imaginative people were. So that is the first idea were given in A Trip to the Moon. Now when we come to the science fiction, I'm trying to make a background about a science fiction for first 10 minutes. So origin of science fiction. So science fiction itself is a very broad and diverse field like biotechnology, but science is a really limitless in nowadays. Within biotechnology, even we can one person cannot talk about a lifetime. So field is a very broad and one of the oldest genre of the literature. So many archaeological elements and entry points. So like we understand even our classical mythological script from the Ramayana and Mahabharata, all places are there, and this all places are available even as on date. So it has a classical relationship with this archaeological elements and entry point. So these are again the few books. I hope you just give me a feedback so that I can come to know at what intensity I can talk. So now, how many of you are familiar with this brown bullet books I have mentioned here? Except Arabian Nights? Except Arabian Nights? Okay. That's nice. So I can come to know the reading habit amongst the students. So nice. A few of you are familiar with this thing, but I hope one or other way, whether we have read it, the Ramayana or Mahabharata, but everybody knows the story of the Ramayana and Mahabharata. So it's a classical fiction. The John Kepler, the Man of the Moon, but reported it are very less. And Frankenstein is a very classical book. Some of you may have read this point. So these are another books. I'm not just trying to take all individual aspect into the mind, but very classical work being done by the Jules Verne. I hope the literature people must at least know this name, Jules Verne. And in your first draft, JP sir, you mentioned the name about this Jules Verne. So few of the things already I have tried to take it from this Jules Verne, and he is considered as a father of science fiction. Initially, he worked a lot in this area. So now what is really science fiction? So science fiction is a really broad term. It cannot be defined by a single definition, but there are various worldviews. So few of the things I am putting before you, then they conceptualize the definition of science fiction. So the first idea was by the Patrick Paul, and he mentioned that science fiction is a characteristic way of thinking about things. Thinking about things means at least you can think, at least you can imagine. A very classical sense given by Albert Einstein. And he always says, imagination is more important than knowledge. So if you have a capacity to imagine, it may be possible tomorrow it become reality. So at least everybody must have imagination power. Then the word of the Isaac, the modern science fiction is the only form of literature that consistently considers the nature of the changes that faces us, the possible consequences and possible solution. So imagination having a power to solve this thing. The Bradbury statement and Wolf statements are very important. All a matter of plausibility means what you can think, it's become reality. This is a strong statement made by the Wolf. So do people think the future might be like this? If so, the science fiction. If they think this could never happen, that is a fantasy. So this is how the antagonistic come. So today anybody is saying such kind of things is not happen. So really this is a fantasy. So that is how the classical thing comes into play. So now let's we come to this science fiction. So science fiction was classically defined. First time the word per se, science fiction was defined in 1930. And the idea again from the classical textbook of the journey to the moon. So modern science began to take the shape from the 19th century. So really the trigger about literature and science is not the 2020, but people seriously thinking the point from 19th century onward. So science fiction defined loosely as a fiction that deals with the impact of science and technology on the world. Sometimes the technology is real, sometimes it is entirely imagined, and sometimes it has been imagined by an author and then brought to reality by scientists. So science fiction themes often warn of potential for disaster when technology is abused. So like when we talk about biotechnology, so one imagination is people, let's say, never die, continuously live. But if you can think like this way, it may be possible that you can develop a technology in a such a manner in the very near future, people can never die because a lot of work has been done. Your neuron can continuously regenerate. You have a technique in biotechnology. But point is, if you can think it like this way, so sometimes your thinking may be disastrous. So this is the another side effect. But point always you have to think. And this is like again and again I'm trying to make about a title. At one hand, it is stimulative, but at another hand, it is antagonistic. So this is how the things can come. So here, this is the literature of change. So here, I will not try to discuss much, but let me come to the points about what are the categories or classification of science fiction. So science fiction can be illustrated here. A science based on technology. So it is a technology driven invention. The future, the remote past, including all time travel stories. Then extrapolation, speculation based on the science or omen. You just imagine after 20 years, 30 years down the line. You just imagine right now the train will run at the speed of 500 kilometer per hour. This is the imagination. The scientific method. Here you have to develop a method in order to achieve your imagination. The places, planets, dimension, including visitor from the above, and catastrophes, natural and man-made. So a story with at least 3 of the element is generally provided science fiction. So out of 7 elements we have presented here, if it consists at least 3 elements, then it is a part of science fiction. That's how all definition you can merge together. And this is the classical criteria you can put for what to consider the science fiction or not. Now, the next point is a type of science fiction. Based on the 7 points we made, we can now subcategorize or subgenre this scientific fiction into the various categories. So there are, out of 7 elements, if you make total possible permutations and combination, you can work out or you can try to classify them into 4 broad categories. One, that is a hard science fiction. The second, a soft science fiction, social science fiction, and military science fiction. Now let's we come first about hard science fiction. The concept of hard science fiction was given by P.S. Miller in 1975, and this is the subcategory by rigorous commitment to scientific accuracy, a technical detail, and plausible physics-based scenario. When we say a physics-based scenario, means that depends on the rule of nature and rule of physical science. For example, when we are trying to follow the rule of physical science and natural science, obviously we are trying to use the concept of physics, chemistry, astronomy is very important here, and electronics. So the first book written under this category by the Mission of Gravity, 1954. This is the hard science. So the bottom line is hard science uses the concept of astronomy, physics, chemistry. Now there is a soft science. So soft science, the main focus of soft science is on social sciences, means it's a people oriented. So when we talk about a people oriented, so emotion always comes into play. And when we think from emotional point of view, so it's a varies from people to people. So it uses broadly the concept of psychology, sociology, anthropology, and politics rather than physics and engineering. Physics and engineering, there is no deviation. You have to follow the rule. There is no deviation. That's why it is a hard science. But here, you bend or become a flexible and things from social point of view, it become a soft fiction. So it prioritizes human emotion, character, and social impact over technical accuracy and plausible technology, often using speculative setting to explore the human condition. So here, these are the certain textbook like the Demolished Man, 1952 is one of the good book to understand what's a soft science is. Now, third category, that is a social science fiction. So social science fiction is again a science by subgenre focusing on speculative sociology. Speculative sociology means how the people would be after 20 years, 30 years. You see your own lifespan. Like 30 years, we were running on the cycle. Cycle is again Atlas. And now again, we compare cycle to cycle. How good cycle we are using? We are having electric cycle. We can change it like gear. So within the short span, the things are changes. So a point is, we are thinking in terms of the sociology or anthropology rather than just in terms of the technology. So it explore how future alternative or change society function. So society keeps on changes every now and then, and examining human behavior. So we are trying to study the human behavior. Whatever the social norms being followed by our father and our forefather, perhaps we are not following it. And whatever the norms being followed by us, our children are not following it. So there is a great transition in terms of the human behavior, culture, and political sequences. This is called the social science fiction. And this is the H.G. Wells book, is a classical books, and again Orwell and other author who wrote extensively about this thing. Now, fourth category of science fiction is a military science fiction, and this is very important. And this is the subgenre that blends futuristic technology. Now you see, we are just living in the era of the war. Many countries are at loggerheads to one another, and we see always new picture, new technology on Twitter and everything, how buildings are destroyed, how drones are coming into play. So this is really based on the military fiction. So this is how a space concept, a spaceships, and very interestingly, nowadays, the amalgamation of artificial intelligence and advanced weaponry with the theme of war, combat, and military life. So again, military are thinking now together differently. Now you can make a talk like every now and then, like America can use like this way, China can use like this way. Nobody knows whether they have technology or not. Today we are not knowing whether Iran having a nuclear bomb or not. But still we are living under the imagination. We can think next day Iran can destroy America, or America can destroy to this country or Israel, and so on and so forth. So this is a military imagination. And even 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, we may think that like today's we are listening every now and then, you are having Iran having a missile that can run at the speed of 1200 kilometer per hour. That's how with the precision they are operative. So this is maybe a true, maybe, but anyway, whatever the imagination you are making, that becomes a tomorrow's reality. This is the military science fiction. And in a military science fiction, very classical book is a Nutrium Alchemist 1997, and the reality die function and other textbooks are written. So a point I am trying to make it by introducing this four science-based fiction is people were thinking about all points since 19th century. Today it may appear as a concept for new. So people always blending science with the literature. Literature is imagination. And that's how many imagination of 100 years back are today's reality. So this is the certain good aspect we made. Now let's again come back to the science fiction. When we are talking about a fiction, so here our classical textbook from the Mahabharata and Ramayana are having a plenty of fiction. I'm not here making any dubious point with respect to Ramayana or Mahabharata, but there are certain imaginations are there, and all imagination today become reality. Therefore, our textbooks are very, very important. Why? If you are reading books many times, number of times, books become sacred. The reason are here. So I'll try to illustrate few reasons from the textbooks of Mahabharata and Ramayana. The first classical example is a test tube baby and cloning. And we all understand the birth of 100 Kauravas. How many of you are knowing Kaurava having a one sister? Very good. You are so advanced than me. Only my biological is a more, so I can speak from this platform. But your reading power is such a wonderful. At that your age, I didn't know the Kaurava had one sister. So anyway, this thanks to your reading ability, thanks to technology, and that's your imagination. That's how they become reality. So ultimately, we understand the story is from the Gandhari's body, the embryo was removed by the Vedvyasa and divided into 101 parts and stored them into the different kunds or pots where they develop 100 sons and one daughter. So whether you believe it or not, but whatever the things, imagine 5,000 years back, now today is reality. And we understand that the in vitro fertilization, we are taking out embryo and just giving a birth to human being. So this is a reality. The Mahabharata story is not that old, only 5,000 years old. So whatever the imagination were made by 5,000 years back, that become reality. So test tube baby and cloning, like biotechnology and all things we are talking, so that becomes a reality. The second example is a live telecast or television. This is what in a modern terms we are calling a virtual reality. So everybody knows the story of the Vedvyasa who give extraordinary ability to Sanjaya. This is called divine sights or Divya Drashti. And as a result of this Divya Drashti to Sanjaya, he foresee the war and tried to narrate the story to his king, Dhritarashtra. So whatever the imagination it has means you are sitting at 1%. And like today, we can see the match being played in England or Sri Lanka or any part of the world. This is nothing but virtual reality. So that imagination 5,000 years back, today's it becomes a reality. This is called a virtual reality. So television itself, the satellite, link, YouTube, video, and everything you can see. So this become reality. So this is the virtual reality. Then advanced warfare and nuclear weapons. So much has been done, like the Brahmastra and other Divyastra. We are just trying to see that, and as a result of this, that leading to the some kind of hair loss and skin rashes through this reaction. So today we understand that wherever, like in Japan, even though after 100 years, such kind of devastation was taking place. So hair loss, skin loss, and some other infirmities in the bodies are transmitting into this body. So nuclear bomb concept and modern missile, everybody is familiar today. That becomes a reality. So advanced warfare system, imagine at that point of time, like during the serial of Mahabharata 30, 40 years back, how this arrow can release, somebody can stop that, somebody can moving at greater speed. But this is the reality. Like with this precision, like what is happening every day, you can see the video from the tweet. So you can do and play like anything from America to Iraq, from Russia to any country. You can control the things. So that is the reality. The next best example is a genetic engineering or surrogacy. And so far as the surrogacy is concerned, like this is the classical case, the embryo of Balrama was transferred from the womb of Devaki to Rohini and allowing him to born to the Rohini. So this is the classical example of a surrogacy mother. And we understand that Karna is described born with this genetic armor. So today we understand that you just take it out embryo and plant it to somebody else. This is the word we can say a surrogacy. So surrogacy is a reality. So whatever the imagination at that point of time, sometime it become ridiculous in society, but now today's it become reality. Now again we can see the advanced surgical procedure. Like we are just in the building of the medical science, and it's very interesting to do, just talk about the medical surgery treatment were so advancedly reported in the Mahabharata. Particularly, we understand that Bhishma was lay on the bed of the arrows, many arrows, and few days just he passed. At that point of time, we rise so many things. Why coagulation of blood was not taking place? Why microbes were not there? Why other disease cannot be catched up? But we understand that the today's military surgery is based on this idea. If something happens, how to treat it immediately. So it makes a foundation for the advanced surgical procedure. Then we have a submarine and aerial vehicle, like it was described. The Krishna, a flying machine. At that time, it was called a Vimana, and that was the sketch was reported in the Mahabharata. So today we are having a modern, unidentified flying object. Sometimes it falls down. We can see from where it comes. So unidentified flying objects we can see in a newspaper many times. So these are the object really comes from the sky, and as a result of this, like today, it is a part of the surveillance of the drone system. So we can put a drone from one end to the another end, and that's how it become reality. So submarine, aerial vehicle, and other vehicle are the classical point. Now another interesting story about time dilation. Time dilation means to increase. Opposite effect is also possible. So we understand that time is sacrosanct. Second is a second. Minutes is a minute. How to count it? But a matter of fact, it has been reported that time can be expanded or time can be contracted. The classical is a story of Kakudmi, and Kakudmi's father wants to find a very good groom for her daughter. So he went to Brahmaloka and ask Brahma to give a boon to her daughter so that she get a good husband. And we understand that Brahma told that by the time you reaches to the earth, it everything will be changed. And matter of fact, the daughter came to the earth. It passed from reaching from the upper side or heaven to the earth 27 Chaturyuga. Chaturyuga, you imagine, it's a very, very broad time. So time has been changed very significantly. In order to getting a simple boon from the Brahma, by the time she was reaches to the earth, so much time has passed and number of generation has passed, number of generation has died, and realized that her daughter's height was so huge, Rohini. And finally, ultimately, Rohini got married with the Balrama, the brother of the Sri Krishna, and Balrama has tried to reduce her height so that adjustable to her height. So point is, time can be expanded. This is called a time dilation. And you look at to the theory of the Einstein proved that time can be dilated, time can be increased or time can be decreased. But this is a classical literature that people were imagining this kind of ideas, and things were that time dilation effect was there in the Mahabharata. Then federal education, that's a Garbh Sanskara. In Hindu culture, we are having a various kind of sanskara. We are doing like Janoi and other from birth to death. There are 24 different sanskaras are there. So the narrative is like Abhimanyu, we understand that, has already learned this technique of Chakra Vyuha. See, he heard the story in the womb itself. So this is a kind of Garbh Sanskara. This is the primary Sanskara. So today's reality is the support the scientific understanding. Now science has proved that the fetus can hear and respond external stimuli. So whatever the expectant mother we are having, our mother is telling that give a very good environment to the mother so that whatever the child comes, future child comes, they comes with very good vibration. So now this thing has been proven. Whatever the external stimuli you are giving, the fetus can be developed like this way. So this is the reality. Then again in a Ramayana, like flying Vimanas are there, like Pushpaka Vimana story, everybody understand. Then there is a chariot on which Ravana is moving from Sri Lanka to the different part of the world. Then there is Astra called Iron Dome. Very interesting, this epic was already described, and it is guided by the mantra. So that can track and target the launcher similar to the modern smart missile. And we understand that like every countries, modern countries having a guided missiles where they can put or they can be guided to the from point A to point B. So that kind of ideas already being reported in the Ramayana. Then very interesting idea about a plastic surgery, the directly attributed to the Sutra Sahita. Those who are from the Ayurvedic, there is one classical papers are from the Sutra Sahita are there. They can talk about the surgery concept from Lakshman and various other people, how they were treated at that point of time. Very interesting about a Rama Setu or floating bridge technology. So construction of bridge, and we understand that there are certain kind of stone they are suspending into the water. So these classical things we understand today we can develop a pumic stone. We have a techniques stone you can pass air, and as a result of this its density decreases so that it can float onto this water. Then this is the advanced geographic mapping. So here there is a detailed description of every part of the world. You can see this was the sketch was reported into the Ramayana. And today's the navigation, like Google Map is nothing, but it's a classical example based on this navigation system. Then there is a information transmission through like Hanumana jump or communication system developed by Hanumana is a very classical point. How Hanumana reaches to the Sitaji, the Mandir and story. So fast communication was imagined at that point of time. Now today's it becomes reality. So here these are the different idea. But very interestingly, it is a time travel, moving between different points in time. So you can track the time 100 years back, 200 years back. This is a time travel journey where we are having a superhero are reported in a various literature. Then space opera, what is happening onto the space. So people are very concerned. Even the 100 years back, there is a possibility to develop a space area. And today, eagerly, we are trying to explore or possibility for moon landing, moon science. Even people are thinking the possibility on the Mars. So this kind of things are there. Now, very interestingly, today we talk about a robot. People were imagining how it is capable to take the command from the human being, and what command being given by the human, the machine can act like this way. So that kind of idea were well known. Then, interestingly, the concept called cyborgs. Cyborgs is nothing but it is a combination of organic. Organic means human body. You are mixing with biomechanetic body parts. So mechanetic parts is a machine part. You can implant some machine part into human. So for example, like any implant we can see, starting from the tooth implant to prosthetics. So this is how the cyberonics concept was developed, and today it's become reality. And there is a cyberpunk. Cyberpunk is nothing but it is high-tech, low-life, fighting against oppressive mega corporation, then aliens, beings, or life from originating from outside the earth. Except earth, we are knowing how people is living. But below the earth and above the earth, how life become possible, this is our imagination called alien. So this kind of fictions were highly reported in the literature, and finally it is a utopia and dystopia. Means how under extreme condition, how the good society would be. This is called utopia. You can think what best you can have. If you have to ask a boon from the God, God will give you everything. So what you will ask? There is a limit beyond which you cannot ask. I have everything now. Similarly, how you can destroy to somebody? This is called dystopia. There is a limit of destroy. At least one country can bomb and there is a flat land. This is what the final dystopia state. So all imagination, the utopia and dystopia, there are number of literatures are there. Here, these are the certain textbook. Now, how many of you are familiar with how many books? How many of you are familiar with at least 3 books? 3 books. Sure? The raise is so high. Now 2 books? And 1 books? And no books? Oh, good. So anyway, the very interesting and in today's concept is a Journey to the Center of Earth by Julius Verne. This is again some popular science books. If you have time in future, at least try to read this thing. So we can say that it is an imaginative concept which is based on the imagination of superstition person and his brain theories who creates lot of dreams. So point is create dreams. And this dream should lead to space travel, time travel, faster than light travel, and parallel universe and extraterrestrial life. So this is how the science fiction and fantasy works. Now, these are the different themes. Some of the things already I gave a reference. Now, the term sci-fi. The term sci-fi was first time introduced in 1954 by Ekram, and he was American magazine editor, science fiction writer, a founder of science fiction, and he reported very extensively. So, how many of you are knowing to this gentleman, Ekram, 1954? He was considered as a father of the science fi, written very extensively from USA. And there are many things to discuss, but for the sake of the time, I'm trying to skip up certain things. Now, here in 21st century, I hope most of the audience are knowing many, many things better than us. This is what about all science fiction, a lot of movies like Transformers. How many of you have seen Transformers? Very nice. Avatar? Oh, everybody is seeing movie at least. This is confirmed. Huh? And Gravity? All right. So this is what the sci-fi is. So I don't need to introduce much about sci-fi because everybody has seen. These are the classical movies to understand the sci-fi. Now, the first science fiction, A Trip on the Moon, already I talked in 1902, and that concept, the story, 14 minutes video, I recommend to everybody can see after completion of this seminar. And this is really based on the Jules Verne's novel, Moon and the Around. So that's why the concept of Jules Verne is so important, and that's how in concept note it was written. So I always appreciate Dilip Bharat sir and entire team, those who have make a concept note. Now, how many you just seriously tell me, if you are attending seminar, that's fine, but really you can go through very seriously about concept notes. How many of you read concept notes very seriously, and based on the concept notes you are deciding whether I can go for the seminar or not? So you read, it's a beautifully drafted. I don't know who has drafted the things, but he mentioned about this point. So here, yes. So what is awareness about this point? How many of you are knowing? Yes. What are you knowing, sir? That's fine. But what you can give a sense, you can at least give a sense. That would be enough.
I saw the movies and comics
Very
and
true.
so on. First, Hunger Game that represent the alternate planet or
This is alternate reality. Very
alternate
true you are
reality. Yes.
mentioning.
The second one, Martian, which is movie about the team travel to the Mars and some accidents happens and in survival story basically
Very right.
about the
That's based on
person.
social imagination, correct?
Yes, right. Third is about superheroes, Marvel and other superheroes like Spider-Man. When Spider
Right.
bite on human and then he got some superpowers. Thor, which is a Greek mythological character, which is who live in a different planet
Correct.
or so on. Every superhero have different story.
So nice for your view, sir. Thank you very much. The point is, really, sir, all of you, those who are sitting on the first bench, I was not expecting such kind of response. So from my point of view, it's a huge success of your seminar, sir. Really, it's not for appreciation of the things. Audience is a very classical audience. I can see very young audience. Now see, in young audience, sometimes people like me at least are not judging properly. My daughter is in final year of MBBS. For last 3 years, whenever she comes to Ahmedabad, she always read such kind of literature fiction. Initially, I was so disappointed being a student of medical science, why she is learning such kind of literature. But she was telling me a lot of ideas are developing. 2 years back, it was difficult to understand for me. Then gradually I start learning few of her book. And when a moment, JP sir, of course, he's a friend from me for nearly 3 decades. Can you give a lecture? I immediately said yes, without concept note. But point is, sir, that was my inspiration to come here. I don't know about audience, but at least what I know, at least I should try to transfer before my audience. So in that sense, it's a really very interesting audience. I would like to know one thing from you, whether you are seeing all this thing from movie or YouTube video. You are going in a cinema hall, or you are all things you can see in a, sorry, madam? Cinema, very good. So please try to maintain this habit. There is another time, otherwise sir has to give me why I am telling so. But anyway, this is a very good habit. Try to see such a movie better in a cinema than YouTube. All right. So in Indian cinema, again, our Indian Bollywood people are not left behind to develop such a sci-fi based stories. So like Bahubali, Robert, Ravan, Koi Mil Gaya, Krishna, love story. I hope everybody knows about all these 6 slides, right? These are all classical example of sci-fi. There are many things to discuss, sir. How long I can wind up? So I will rush through now because I have a stock of minimum 1 more hour. Anyway, I'll run through. So this is the classical work of Julius Verne. I hope people from literature are knowing all about Jules Verne, but people from the science are knowing less. At least you know this word and try to Google it out. You get a lot of information from this lecture. So classically, the science fiction, to popularize the science fiction, is as a result of this gentleman. So I'm just trying to skip the story of this Jules Verne. So these are the classical story, its character, how we built up the story and all this thing. But due to the paucity of time, I'm not trying to tell. But it's one of the classical book. Of course, he wrote very, very good books. One of the book is Around the World in 80 Days. In 1900, that was a bet between the person. So that was a challenge being accepted. How you can complete the tour of 80 days without aeroplane and everything. So here the imagination, how within 80 days world can be completed. This is the central idea of this book. But very interestingly, lot of imagination being made into this story. I request everybody should read. These are the characters and all things I am just trying to skip. So really what is fascinating is that some of today's most advanced invention and discovery were already envisioned in movie and show that premiered decades ago. So whatever the things, put it into the movie, now they become really a reality. So anything you can imagine, that become today or tomorrow become the reality. So this is the theme of the sci-fi movie already explained, like alien life, robots, disaster, military sci-finder, mind and identity, time travel, and superhuman. So that was the slides already being explained by him. Now this is the robots. I hope there are very good movies based on the robot concept. Was quite old. Even 100 years back, people were thinking about robots. Now today, still we can think this is a new concept. But it is not that. Earlier, it was imagination. Now today is the reality. So here, like a boy and his dog talks about nuclear bomb disaster, the Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I think most of you must have watched this movie. The man supplied by the technology and environmental disaster by Kevin Costner. So these are the much things still how to made. There's a good military-based sci-fi movie. So ultimately, mind, identity, the books are there. So point finally I would like to make it here is, so based on all imagination, ultimately a classical Star Trek, again, it was a old serial. How many of you are familiar with the Star Trek? I think, well, anyway, so imagination, now today we can see a portable communicator was the idea was taken from the Star Trek communication. Similarly, the touch screen, now all smartphone and things you can see. So you just see the movie of Tom Cruise, Minority Report. The idea was already reported there. Then video call, a Space Odyssey. The movie was there in 1968. So this kind of ideas people were thinking. Again, this idea of HAL, a Space Odyssey, where the AI and all kind of things like today, Alexa takes our command, gives reply. This idea was there. Self-driving cars and Knight Rider. Then Terminator idea for smart glasses of the Terminator. The prophetic blueprint, of course, this is as a result of this literature reported from there. Now, this is the 9 times science predicted future. So great discoveries we have seen as a result of this literature. The first electric vehicle, first time reported in a book, Stand on Zanzibar. The cell phone, this is the book Douglas Adams. Internet, Neuromancer. Space travel, the outer space. Robots and AI, robots by Asimov. The pandemic, the lock-in, and all terms you can see. Corona, again, it seems a new term for us in 2019. But all things, lock-in and all kind of things were reported. What happens there in the book by lock-in? The artificial satellites, then moon landing, the destination move, and atomic bomb, the world set fire. So these are 9 major discoveries are really based on this literature, and literature is the imagination. So that's how at least you can understand how science and literature are absolutely linked. They are not separate. So you can see like alien life, robots, disaster, military, time travel, and things are known to the world. So I think finally I would like to make a final notes about our presentation. So point is, at the end of the lecture, now at least I try to realize, imagine how, what new technologies after 50 years. So friends, what you imagine today, that become reality. Reality is a science. So it becomes science tomorrow. So only thing is your imagination itself is a limitation. Anything you can imagine, that become reality. And today in the spiritual world, lot of things we are calling give affirmation to your body, that become reality. So this is how. So in that sense, finally I again thank you to Mehta sir, Gudani sir, Joshi sir, Bharat sir, all participants really make interaction very lively and hear me very patiently. If you think I am wise enough, you can ask or pose a question. Huh? Yes, madam. No, no problem. So let's follow the format. So I skip my talk here. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Due to the constraints of time, we'll take the Q&A after the second plenary address is done. I invite Ms. Megha Trivedi to introduce the second plenary speaker for the day, Dr. Deepak Mashru, sir.
Good morning, everyone. It is our pleasure to introduce our esteemed speaker, Dr. Deepak Masru sir, Assistant Professor of English at the National Forensic Science University, Gandhinagar, under the Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India. Dr. Masru has more than 2 decades of academic experience with expertise in applied and forensic linguistics, English language teaching, and educational technology. He has published several research papers, authored books and book chapters, and has delivered expert lectures at many national and international conferences. Now, I humbly invite Dr. Deepak Masru sir to share his valuable insights with us. Sir, the virtual stage is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm uploading the presentation, so in a minute, I guess I'll be able to start. By the time I start my talk, it would be unfair if I don't mention this. The moment I received an invitation from Bharat sir about this, I considered this as a privilege, opportunity to be with him, sharing the things, sharing my views in his presence. But unfortunately, due to my assignment, I'm traveling, so I requested sir to allow me to present this on online platform. Generally, we mentioned gratitude in the last, but I want to start with that. For last more than 2 decades, Bharat sir has inspired, encouraged, motivated, hundreds of students, literature students, with reference to technology, blending technology with reference to different nuances of aspects. And I'm very proudly like to mention that I'm one of them. Whatever technological advancements I could find, as a student, right, in my career, I could find that that there were somewhere sir was the inspiration. So on this platform, with using this platform as a appropriate a platform to mention and acknowledge and express my gratitude to Bharat sir, and then with Bharat sir's permission, I would like to start. Okay, the topic that has been given to me and the time that has been given to me is 25 minutes, 35 minutes time. By 12 o'clock, we'll be completing the presentation. We'll start with the idea of forensic linguistics. So what I'll do is for next 30 minutes, I'll be talking about presentation and followed by 5 minutes of question answer if there is any. Fine. The title that has been given to me is Forensic Linguistics in Literature and Scientific Integration. Now, if you want to understand the literature and science together, right, this is a very rare thing that we find, because the people who are from science background, they fail to give the emphasis to literature, and the literature people have different ideas about science. So when we are blending this two, that can be the best way for the research domains. If I start with why forensic linguistics in investigation, right? When I start this forensic linguistics discussion, the first thing comes that why we do this and what is the importance of this. See, the way India is progressing, India has in 2024, right, the new criminal laws have been introduced, and the third one, right, one of the three criminal laws, that is Bharatiya Sakshata Adhiniyam, BSA, the 39th section of 1 of BSA, that says that the forensic linguist as an expert can be present in the court of law and talk about and present his views. So here, with this point, we are getting an opportunity as science student and as a literature student, right, to prove ourselves, right, as our expertise. Now, why forensic linguistics? Now, if we talk about forensic linguistics, right, forensic linguistics is used in investigations across several countries, notably in the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, right, Germany, Netherlands. So these are the countries which are advanced countries, right, developed countries. They are using forensic linguistics as a domain for investigating purpose. Now, when these two terms come together, that creates a kind of curiosity to us that what does it mean? I'm coming to that one. Now, how in India we can do this, and how we can do this, and how this blended domain can help for new opportunities of job, new opportunities to contribute to the nation, and new opportunities for academics that we will discuss in this session. Now, when we go back to our roots, in my previous session, talked about roots. He mentioned about 5,000 years back what happened in Mahabharata and Ramayana. So I'm coming back to that point, right? If you can see the screen, you will find on one side 6 set of images, and on the other side there is one image. Now, this 6 set of images, shows the molecules of water, right? These pictures are taken by Imoto Mashiro from Japan by freezing the water, and he has captured the photography of molecules. Now, what is it? What does it mean, right? The sample in 1994, he took a sample of water from Fujiwara Dam of Japan, and he took the photography of molecules of water, and the same water was offered to a Zen monk for prayer. After the prayer, surprisingly, the molecules were changed. The people from the science background would be knowing about it, right? And then somebody mentioned that somebody talked to the water and talked about positive things and amicable things, and the molecules were changed. When the people talked with the water and negatively, the molecules were changed, right? Now why we are talking about this, the effect of water in Akbar, the Darbar of Akbar, right? There were 9 Ratnas, right? One of them was a singer, right? And with raga, Deepak raga, or other ragas, the things were possible. Why is it so? With the power of words. On the right hand side, there is a symbolic image of Arjuna, right? When he is chanting a mantra with, arrow, that means a simple arrow, that is astra, with the chanting of mantra becomes, divyastra. That's the power of words. Now, when we see that the effect of water, effect of words that that is found in water, then we have 70% of our body is water. That means it affects us too, right? Now, this experiment, scientific experiment, was made in 1994, some 35 years back, right, by Imoto Mashiro, and he mentioned this in this book, Experiment with Water. You can see that even he did experiments with rice also, right? Now, then he did some experiment with rice, right? Cooked rice, and the person speaks negative, ill things about, with the rice, and the rice, they are not edible. Now, if you speak rice, good things with rice, and that you find that things are good. Same thing we can find with our, heritage. In every temple, we find that an archman, right, that water is given to us. Why? Because that carries the positive molecules and positive vibes that we take it, so that helps us. Even in Nathdwara, and I'm here at Bhubaneswar, we can see that here at Jagannath temple, they give the prasad of rice, right? That test is different. The things that, because the vibrations are different. So here, we want to talk about that everywhere, the words that we speak, right? The words that we think and the words that we come across, that has got a value and that affects our body scientifically. That is proved. Now, if we go next, we understand that what is linguistics. See, linguistic, language, literature, all are different things. When I say literature is a language of pleasure, right? When we talk about legal language, right, that's a language of power. Now, linguistics is a scientific study of language, where we find that we identify the linguistic aspects scientifically. It is no more about novel or a poetry. It's about pure sciences, right? How we can do that, we are coming to that one. And today, when you are using, even probably more than WhatsApp, you are using ChatGPT or other AI tools, right? So what does it show? It's about computational linguistics that talks about language, right? That blends the language in a different way. Now, if we talk about what is forensic linguistics, we can find that forensic linguistics is a very typical interdisciplinary field that merges two things: linguistics and legal system together, right? So it talks about the investigation of an analysis of written and spoken communication. Now, you must have studied communication skills, right, in your UG/PG somewhere, where it talks about verbal and non-verbal communication. So everywhere you find this kind of things. Now, one statement, the way we have today this current scenario, right, the tension is built about war. So if you look at it, I can take you back to 1 year back, where we had Operation Sindoor. Right now, if you observe the press briefing of Operation Sindoor by Indian Army personnel and the army personnel of other country, you'll find clearly the way the selection of words, the presentation, everything was different. Right, it was calm and cool and very clear. Right, it was evidence based. There were no exaggerations. There was no speech variations. So it was very clear. Right, so how you speak, how you convey things, that matters a lot. And people who who are strategic communicate analysts, they analyze the content in a very particular way. So here, by the end of this session, we will understand that how we can reverse the pyramid, right, and we can find the new aspects of linguistics. Now, if you look at that, right, how can we identify things in a different way? So I would like to talk about the key areas of forensic linguistics. If you look at this, the language crimes. Now, if you look at today, we find, social media. Fine. Social media is the biggest curse that we can find here, where people are triggered, people set separate narratives, typical narratives, and that leads the entire nation. Right, so here whatever crimes happen, that is language based. Now it covers all the things. Fine, verbal, non-verbal, even in Gen Z. Fine, if you ask Gen Z that if they write okay, right? OKAY, OK, capital OK, right? OK and smiley. All these things are different, different aspects. You have never imagined such kind of things when you scroll your ideas, right? So somebody, when you post something, you will have a habit of 3 dots, right? Some people write, certain things in different way. So you have your own idea, your own style of writing. That means scientifically we have our DNA in a unique form, we have our fingerprint unique, we have tongue print unique, but linguistically our linguistic print, right, our communication print is unique. It is called linguistic fingerprinting. Fine. So here we can identify the person, with reference to language-based crimes. Second one is authorship attribution. Now, what do you mean by authorship attribution? The big question comes that who wrote this, right? When the teachers, when we are there, we assess the papers, we get to know that okay, we received the same kind of content in 3 consecutive papers. We understand that this must be copied one, right? So here we can find out the authorship attribution with reference to the language based ideas, right? Because everybody speaks in a different way, everybody writes in a different way, everybody's background is different. For example, I carry 4 books of reading with me. That means the vocabulary is limited. Somebody has 500 books read, somebody has read 100 books. So everybody has, even the people with 100 books with different domains, even they will write in a different way, right? So that is one point. Second one is trademark disputes. Trademark is purely based on your idea, your unique name that you write, right? We find TM or R at the end of any name, brand name. That's about trademark, right? So how we can find out this? Forensic linguistics can play a role there also. Plagiarism detection. This is the big issue with everybody, right? When you submit your research paper, when you submit your dissertation, when you submit your proposal or a project, every time when you look at Turnitin, and the easiest way the student find is they use either Quillbot, or what they do is they try to change the words with synonyms so that they can suffice the purpose of decreasing the Turnitin percentage of similarity. But sometimes it does not work. You know why? Because here Turnitin does not, I'm talking about the hidden algorithm of Turnitin. Turnitin does not look at the words, because sometimes you change the words even if the content is detected. That is a plagiarized one. Why? Because Turnitin detects the style of writing, not the content as it is. The fundamental thing is 3 words together in a line, that is plagiarized, but Turnitin also looks at the style of writing. If you only change the words, every 3rd word you change, but the style remains same, in that case that caption can be identified, and that can be considered as plagiarized one, right? After that, forensic phonetics, right? This can be the best tool in the era of AI, and deepfake, right? People can mimic you. People can have a small sample of audio of your voice that can be easily available from any of the sources, right? Your photograph, they merge it and they make a video, right? Now thing is that as a forensic linguist, we can identify the person, because what we do is, as a forensic linguist, we can check, analyze the content in 6-7 different layers, right? So when you have your unique linguistic feature that has multiple layers, right, AI cannot incorporate all together with a small sample. So apparently it may look same or similar, but when we put it to the investigation and analysis, we can find out it's a coerced one, is it the right one, or is the original one. So here forensic phonetics can help definitely. For example, you can change your voice, right? For example, there are lots of tools available in the market that where you can change the tone of your voice, for example, from male to female, or robotic voice, so that people don't identify your speaking. But the problem is, right, they fail to understand that the crux of the words that you speak, you cannot mimic that one. Even if you have slightest background of your words, you can find that that can be identified. And in ELT, we call it MTI, mother tongue influence. That means the influence of first language will definitely be reflected there. So here, for investigation, we can use that also. A legal interpretation, that nowadays the people are moving for the legalese, that all the legal sections can be written in easiest way. This 3 criminal laws have been one of the examples where the focus has been shifted from punishment to forensic investigation. So over there also we can use this linguistic for interpretation aspect. Witness statement analysis. Now somebody put a gun on your forehead and tells you that you need to speak like this. So the words that you speak, right? For example, yesterday I was talking to somebody and the person said actually, and I could find that in last 2 days, during the conversation, I could find that person speaking actually, but he must have spoke actually for 6-7 times, and all these 6-7 times the pronunciation of actually was different. Now you must not have observed this one. If you listen to that actually only, but when the person is happy, the person is sad, the person is confused, the same word is pronounced a different way, where we can identify. Now the person is speaking, giving a statement before the police, right? So in that case, what will happen, that that person will speak. Now the issue is, it might be possible that somebody has given a script that you need to speak this, or somebody is speaking by natural. So even we can come to know, because the English for written, English for spoken, both are different things. So even we can identify the person through this one, right? After the discourse analysis, when a person is interacting with somebody, discussion is happening. For example, we get a CCTV footage, right? So we can analyze the discourse, threat deception and detection. This is a common thing that we find. You are getting a ransom calls, or we are getting emails, threatening emails. If you find that before few time, there were few months, it was time when people used, we used to find on a Twitter that hashtag flight number and bomb. Fine. Now this pattern, if you observe, that has incurred a loss of millions of rupees to India, right? And that was a big setback to Indian economy. Why? Because we, as per the norms of aviation, that 45 minutes of hold, rechecking everything, and that was a big thing. So one word can create lots of things, right? Then we have forensic stylistics. I'll talk about stylometry, right? We studied, as a student of literature, we studied about styles, the subject, verb, object, and other things, right? Direct, indirect speech, active, passive voice, all these things. But how we can use this for investigating purpose, right? We'll be discussing today in this presentation. One example of stylometry, right? If you go to YouTube and you find the Unabomber case of United States, right? You will find this as one of the most expensive and lengthiest investigation in the history of US investigating agency, right? FBI, right? Ted Kaczynski was the person, right, who used to he could not be identified for years. After that, and he had a typical style of writing a manifesto, right, when he used to plant the bombs, right? Now when the police department, FBI, they published all the content of manifesto in New York Times, where Kaczynski's cousin could find that this is a very similar style of my brother's writing, and that was informed, and that clue helped FBI to resolve and convict the culprit. So this is something that we can find, a small stylometry can lead things to different way. Now another example of Derek Bentley case. This is a very beautiful example of how the things are misinterpreted and how they lead to lots of issues. Derek Bentley case of UK, right? It was very beautiful example. Derek Bentley with his minor friend of 16 years, less than 16 years, they had been there to break one house for stealing purpose, where a girl could see them, and she dialed 911 and the police came there. At the time the police entered the crime scene, Derek Bentley was the ground floor and his friend, right, was there at the top of the terrace. The police went there on the terrace, right? And by the time the Derek Bentley was standing on the ground, and he just said that let him have it. Let him have it, right? That was the word. Now, thing is that was misinterpreted as that Derek Bentley gave a command to his friend, who was a minor one, to kill the policeman. And this happened. That boy shot the policeman. The policeman died at once. And Derek Bentley was charged. Why? Because that person was minor, and it was mentioned that he triggered him. Second, during the cross-examination, when he was asked that did you know or were you aware whether he was having any gun or not, and Derek Bentley was not good with linguistics, right? And he mentioned that I was not aware whether he was having the gun or not. Now he used article the, where the judge interpreted this. When he used article that means it is about specific things. He was confirmed about it, right? So in that case, what happened? That it was considered that he was the culprit, and he was given a punishment of death penalty. Now after that, after some years, right, the case was reopened. The case was reopened by a linguist, and it was proved that it was not the case. He was given posthumous pardon, but that pardon was too late because he was dead, right? Such kind of examples, that can open your eyes that one misuse of article, right, or your way of telling, that can lead to lots of issues, or that can lead you to somewhere where you're never imagined about. This is a very beautiful classic case study of J.K. Rowling, right? That you know about it, right? That it's the only stylometry that was matched, right? And it was revealed that it was J.K. Rowling was getting his her publication with the pseudonym, right? You can read it later when you get the time. Then we can map the forensic linguistics with other domains, right? I'll skip this one. Right, there are challenges of forensic linguistics. There are linguistic anomalies. We call it anomalies, mismatches, right? Where we can detect, for example, authorship anomalies, where the language is inconsistent. In some writing, we find that some in the presentation rather, the one which has been copied properly, one has been generated by AI. So we are having one way of logical connectivity. Suddenly there is a disturbance, and then we have a plain road, right? This logical sequence is changed. That can be found through authorship anomalies, right? Textual anomalies, when we cut pet errors, right? In Pakistan, one case was lost by the government of Pakistan only because of one font, right? The document was forged using Calibri font. Now, at the time of submitting the documents, right, Calibri font was not created. And because of that only, right, it was the case, it was found that the document was forged. So likewise, when you cut past the things, we find that the writing style, the stylometry is changed. Right, content anomalies, we can find the logical inconsistencies, right? Mismatch with knowledge of the person that is found. Generally, we find such kind of things in the wills, right? When the property wills and documents are there, that are when they are modes, they are forged one or they're coerced one. We find forensic phonetics. I talked about the disguise and modification, but we get to know with lots of softwares that we have, right? There's a different Indian perspective. The Indian perspective is very clear. That's an emerging one, right? The term forensic linguist is a new term here in India, but it is very properly, it's emerging, right? And it has got lots of things, right? I'll tell you that the first course on forensic linguistics has been introduced before 1.5 years. It has got more than 6,000 enrollments on Swayam platform by IIT Madras NPTEL platform. I got an opportunity and privilege to launch that course, and last year this course has been extended to, right, three credit, 12 weeks course. So it is there on Swayam platform. You can go for it. You can learn that. Even in MHA government website, that our School of Open Learning at National Forensic Sciences University, right? We offer this course for all law enforcement agencies, right? Which has got lots of legal backgrounds with forensic linguistics. You can also get to know more details about one of my TED talks there on YouTube, available there. You can go to YouTube and you can find TED talk on forensic linguistics. You get lots of new ideas about it. But here, the reason why I want to talk today to the literature and science students is, with this blend, you have opportunities to lead this forensic linguistics to the next level. Right now, where we can blend this one, right? Where literature and meets science, right? Where the birthplace of forensic linguistics. See, literature studies meaning, voice, and narratives, right? But science studies the patterns, data, and evidence. Now, when we blend these two, it talks about forensic linguistics that combines both traditions to analysis of language scientifically, right? So that is a beautiful thing, that that where forensic linguistics can be the bridge between literature, linguistics, and the science. Now, if you look at this, right, what literature gives you? Literature gives the sensitivity of language. It helps you to understand the tone and voice. It helps you to identify the stylistic patterns of content. It can help you to analyze the narrative structure. It can help you to detect the shifts in the language. Now, on the other side, if you look at the science, right, it can give you different tools to measure the language. Now, we have never thought about that the language can be measured, right? We can find out that what are the number of words, or what kind of words that we use repeatedly. There are softwares that can tell you that in your speech, in your writing, you use particular word for particular number of times, right? Computational stylometry, I talked about it, where the Turnitin detects your content. The content is AI generated, and we can have some other day, we can talk about it. How can we bypass things? How can we make this humanized one, or how we can write naturally that does not catch, right, the idea of similarity or AI detection, right? A digital linguistic database, the corpus that we have, right? We can figure out the person, from which region the person is. For example, when I met somebody, right, yesterday only I met somebody, I mentioned that you must be from Haryana. He said, no, I'm from Rajasthan. You must be from Haryana, Rajasthan border. He said, yes, I'm from that particular area. The way you speak, your tone, your idea, the word selection, that can give you that where you belong to. Now, if we can turn this pyramid to reverse one, we can identify the suspect. We can identify the person. We can identify the writer and the speaker, that from which region the person is, which gender the person is, right? Because every person of gender, they have different style of writing, right? Even the age group, right? The people of below 40, between 25 to 40, they have different style of writing because of background. The people above 45, they have different style of writing because they are not exposed to certain things. If you look at the Gen Z, right, they're different style of writing, that because they are exposed to certain type of styles in writing, right? So even we can get to know about the age group, we can get to know about the gender, we can get to know about the mood and the psychological state of mind from the words, right? This is something where we can open the new vistas of linguistics, right? Okay, the forensic linguistics, the perfect interdisciplinary field, we can say that, where the literature contributes to interpretation, science contributes to measurement, law provides the investigating framework, right? If we find this pure and best blend, that can help us for lots of new avenues, right? Now, what can be done for the new generation of forensic linguists, right? So here, the literature students can bring linguistic insights, science students can bring analytical precision. Together, they can uncover the hidden truth in the language, if you can blend this. So there are lots of areas, right, which are not even thought of, that can be considered as domain, from either from science end or literature end. They can be considered as research domains, right? Some of them I have mentioned here. For example, if you add forensic linguistics plus DNA science, you can go for ethnolinguistics. You'll be surprised to know that every person, right, what are your roots, whatever your background is, which is there in your DNA and your genes, even the language can be identified, right, from there one. So bioforensic linguistics can be there, right? If you want to blend linguistics with maths, you can find qualitative linguistics. If you add linguistics with physics, you can talk about acoustics forensic linguistics. If you want to add forensic linguistics with neuroscience, you can go for neuroforensic linguistics, right? If you want to go for forensic linguistics with computer science, as I mentioned, computational linguistics is something that can help you to identify the language or how we manipulate language, right? That we can get to know, right? Last one is geography, that is geolinguistics, ethnolinguistics. They're all ideas, right? So instead of limiting yourself to sociolinguistics or psycholinguistics, there are lots of some domains that you can explore. Right now, if you look at it, the science reveals the patterns, right? The literature reveals meaning, but forensic linguistics reveals the truth. So from poetry to proof, right, we can find using forensic linguistics how words become the evidence, right? It's 11:55. This one image of my Swayam course, right, that you can later on you can explore if you wish to, right? 5 minutes for open house as discussed. If there is a question, we can discuss the next 4 minutes.
Are there any questions from the audience? Any questions from the live stream?
I guess I've given lots of stuff for Sunday to explore.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Anybody?
By the time others can get. Hello. Yeah. Yes. Thanks, Dr. Deepak, for coming here. You had a very hectic schedule, and yet you spared some time to be with us for this session. One question that we would like to ask, like literature people, that is there any such case study where a literature has been analyzed or studied by using a forensic methods?
Yes, sir. Sir, the May I mentioned about J.K. Rowling's case. There was a case of J.K. Rowling's of pseudo authorship. So that piece of literature was analyzed using jacked up software, the stylometry software, and it was decided, it was understood that the stylometry, the writing style, that is matching with J.K. Rowling's, and that was the the verdict of the case. And in a normal way, we can find lots of ideas. For example, there was one case of Shakespeare's work, right? Whether it's written by Shakespeare or somebody else, even that has been investigated using linguistics. So there are softwares, there are ways where people can definitely look into the literature, use literature, piece of literature for investigation.
Nowadays we see with artificial intelligence that we can mimic the style of the famous writers. So in case somebody is mimicking the style of some famous writers through AI and they publish the work, how will forensic help us in detecting such writings? Yeah.
Right. So it's a very valid and genuine question. This question was asked to me while I was training FSL experts, talking about forensic linguistics. Now, sir, I tell you that science works on a typical idea, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. Now, thing is that the way content is given to AI, right? We did one experiment there with ChatGPT. I asked everybody that, there were 30 experts from different forensic laboratories. I asked them that you give me a output of for a significance of forensic science in India, right? That everybody used to do. And then I gathered the information and I showed to them, everybody's information was different, right? Though the topic is same, but things are different. Now here, what happened is the input given to all LLM, large language models, is different one. Second thing. Third thing is, when somebody is writing, that if you look at the writing style, right, there are more than 20 linguistic features that we can find. So somewhere, yeah, if you have a strong prompting, knowledge, and if you if you analyze the content with a large volume, and if you prepare a kind of a detailed prompt with each and every minute style of writing style of the person, and then you give them that person to write about it, then it will be difficult to identify. But in general cases, what happens, the people who go for committing crime or copying, they don't have that sense. If they have that sense, in that case they can create their own, right? Over there, with a small piece of content, it becomes difficult. But when we have large volume, we can definitely identify, as I mentioned, that we can investigate, we can analyze forensic linguistics in 7 different layers. So if we pass through this, the layers and linguistic features, we can identify the person, whether the person is genuine one or coarse one. But I tell you, sir, that all this analysis, all these results are on probability function. Because in forensic linguistics and other forensic science results, which is given on probability, that it can be, it seems to be near to the person who is original one or not. The way Turnitin gives you AI writing, that it looks like AI generated, but it may not be AI generated, right? So here, the person, if that's one of the limitations, because we do not have enough corpus of the content. But if we have enough corpus of the content, we can definitely identify the person, and we can find out using AI.
So my question is regarding bilingualism. So with this growing advancement of technology and AI, so does it change the perspective in human narration about the thinking process and the use of language in the recent contemporary times?
See, language has been the parameter every time. I tell you that the way you speak, the way you think, the reflection of the things that are around you, right? So it is definitely going to change. For example, the people who live in a area which is a rural one, the people who live in urban, the people who live in metro cities, right? The background that you have, that changes. But I tell you one thing, that when you speak one language, your mother tongue or your first language dialect at your place, in that case there will be somewhere rooted with your basics, so that cannot be changed. But when you're speaking different dialects together, because there are lots of people who are researching on dialectology, ideolect, these are the areas. Even ethnolinguistics is something that people are working on. So here, your mindset with multilingualism, plurilingualism will change over a period of time, but there will be one language which will be the base, and the other linguistic features, other dialects, other languages will be in the periphery.
Sir, my question is that are there any limitations of applying scientific linguistic analysis in literary texts?
I don't think there is any limitation. There's a new aspect, new avenues of researching. So you can definitely dig out information instead of just having translation studies or just comparing two studies. You can add this flavor, right? I have seen lots of theses. When we evaluate thesis for PhD, they mention about social linguistics. But if you genuinely target social linguistics as your core area of research, that can definitely help you. So if you find, you can find out different angles of looking at them. Because in the previous plenary session, talked about sci-fi movie, sci-fi novels, and sci-fi genre. So that is the area where you can, add the spotlight of science with linguistics, that which kind of linguistic features were mentioned, right? Before 15 years, before 20 years, and now what is happening. For example, you can find Agatha Christie, right? And who was John Galt? Why that New York Times it was mentioned there, and what is the scenario in US today? So that we generally have compared, as a student of literature, we compared the literally things, right? But now with scientific way of linguistic way, we can also mention. right? For example, you can find out the novels of different time groups, and you find out that why the particular time frame had certain type of writing style, right? Even they can find, for example, in movies you will find, right, 80s, 90s, movies. Every movie had, every decade has a different style of, for example, one style, one genre. If you look at one decade where the typical style judwa type of thing, that every movie was about judwa, hero or heroine in that way, right? One genre was there where the hero was a common man, then injustice happened to his family and he took the revenge. One genre was there that he takes the revenge of the society, being a member of society, right? So different zone has a different type of movie styles, different age group, different decades at different style of writing. So even we can decode that thing also.
Okay. Thank you, sir. We will now offer you a token of our gratitude and appreciation for your contribution, a memento. We'll just show you on the screen. We'll send it to you through courier.
Okay.
Yeah, I request Bharat, sir.
I have genuinely missed this opportunity, Bharat sir. I generally wanted to be in the same frame with you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for sparing your time and being with us
Thank
for
you.
this. We'll see this, it reaches
you,
to
sir.
your home within a week. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We will now take up some questions for the first plenary session delivered by Professor Pragnesh Dave, sir. If anybody from the audience would like to ask any questions. Yes, we do have one.
Can I leave?
Yes, sir. You can leave the live stream. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Now it's a prevailing discussion. So if you have a question, some comments, your own experience, or you want to convey any meaning, session is considered as open. Otherwise, I will communicate something to you. Yes.
I have two questions.
Sir.
First question is that many science fiction writers or the storytelling predicted already some technologies before it actually came into being in previous time, 100 years or 150 years ago. So is there any chances that do any scientist predict the future of AI and robotics by reading the science fiction of previous centuries? And
now, if I means I understood your question correctly, you want to interpolate the things, or you want to know how, let's say, AI would be in the future.
yes,
Is it so?
prediction of AI with the reading of science fiction in current time
Okay.
by the
No.
scientists.
Right. Now, see, you sit, no problem. Point like he's asking AI or any technology in general, what would be the future of, let's say, AI down the line 20 years or 30 years? What would be your prediction? So already I made a point very clearly that you have to decide, sir. It's you want from utopia or dystopia. What maximum best possible scenario you imagine? What worst scenario you imagine? Both things are possible. Point is, if you, let's say, expect a worst scenario or dystopia, how things would be destroyed like anything, in that connection, obviously the political role comes into play. The meaning of political role is, at the same time, government has to think about regulation. They have to see in future. You have to see why such thing is not happened. For example, you are having a fear, or maybe a real, Iran may blast nuclear bomb anytime. right? This is like a worst prediction.
Yes.
They can destroy USA. This is the most worst prediction, or vice versa. Point is, you have to stop. So you have to trigger your reaction right from the beginning. How to stop? It might be possible you may stop, you may not stop. But point is, based on your imagination, whether you talk utopic way or dystopic way, both things are possible. But you think on that extreme, then regulation comes, and regulation depends on political wills and promptness. They may avoid, they may not avoid. Your damage may be 100%, your damage may be partial. So both things are possible. Imagination is true on both the end.
Yeah, and thank you for the first question. And I have a second question that you mentioned about the Mahabharat stories with the relation of scientific imagination. So, can we move that a literal scientific claim without literal scientific claim in Mahabharat? Can we encourage the people for the curiosity of knowing the scientific temperament in ancient literature?
Now see, how you, again, point is how you look at to the ancient literature. Means, and ancient literature is broad. And when we talk about ancient literature, that again depends on your civilization. For example, India, we have Indus civilization. Then Iran, they have their own civilization, Arabian civilization. Similarly, China having their own civilization, Mesopotamia having their own civilization. And you just trace the history. Every civilization have their own way to deal with the things. Maybe, let's say, from medical point of view, like we are having a Ayurveda, the Arabian having Unani. So everybody in past, you just trace the history, everybody having their own way to deal with this matter. So it,
Yes, because sir, Greek people also have interpreted Odyssey epic in
yes,
some scientific manner also
Right,
of the
right,
underworld things and all.
right. So point is, now at what angle you would like to see? For example, you give me instance. Let's say Ramayana, so incidents I would like to see from that scientific angle. I may possibly try to help you out how scientifically that thing can be amplified or look at to from scientific perspective.
Yes.
So there are many things. You Ramayana or Mahabharata in single shot you can't discuss everything. But point is, there is always some scientific angle, but you need to look it into it. It may possible I may not look it today, but possibly tomorrow I can look into it. This is a simple answer, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, sir. My
Yes.
question is that in your starting of the presentation, you mentioned to support your claim, you take example from Mahabharata and Ramayana, which is epic as well as myth. But
Correct.
the authorship of myth is cannot be determined accurately. So how can we connect or say that it is a scientific truth? Consider as a scientific truth that myth.
Right. Now see, how you look at to Ramayana Mahabharata, I leave it to you. Whether you consider as a epic, from spiritual angle, it may be a true. I'm not making any claim so far as the this kind of. But point is, whatever the example I am giving, these are now scientific reality. You tell me, or any other incidents, except I have not mentioned in my talk, which doesn't have a scientific merit. You just give me any, I think 10 incidents I have given from the Mahabharata, selective example I have given. But you tell me which incidents from any Vedas you can take, any scripture you can take, which is still not scientifically supported. I have given the reason. Embryo stage I have given, military, nuclear bomb theory, all examples I given like bow, arrow, then spacecraft. So this now it becomes scientific reality. But so which is still not true, you just define me some incidents so I can take on that point. Right. Right. You're right. See, in that connection, okay, I got your point. What you like to convey means at that point of time, Vimana was there or not. Let's believe it's absolutely a mythological story. It's a fiction. For a moment, let's believe it's a fiction. But point is, 5,000 years back, people were thinking like this way. At lightning speed, you can move from point A to point B. Now, this is reality. Forget about the God is there or not. This is altogether different matter. There is always two views. But point is, the imagination was there 5,000 years back. Now it is reality. That is the point. So fiction turns into reality. That point I was trying to make. That is what I am conveying from the story of Ramayana or Mahabharata. That I leave it to you, whether you believe in God or not, whether it's a real story, a fiction. But point is, imagination makes a difference. So that was imagination that turns into reality today.
સર
Yes, please.
સર મોટાભાગની ડિસ્કવરીઝ જે કોઈ સાયન્સમાં થયેલી છે એ એક્સિડન્ટથી થયેલી છે.
Right.
ગ્રેવિટી હોય કે બીજી કોઈ પણ વસ્તુ એ સમહાવ કોઈ એક્સિડન્ટથી શરૂ થઈ અને પછી આપણે એને ડિસ્કવર કર્યું કે ભાઈ આ વસ્તુ શા માટે થઈ અથવા તો એની પાછળ શું કારણ છે. હવે લિટરેચરની અંદર પણ કોઈ પણ યુનિક આઈડિયા આવે છે, ફોર એક્ઝામ્પલ ટાઈમ ટ્રાવેલિંગ, તો આ આઈડિયા છે એની યુનિક આઈડિયા અથવા તો ઓરિજિનલ આઈડિયા એનું શરૂઆત કઈ રીતે થઈ હોય અથવા તો કોઈના વ્યક્તિના દિમાગમાં યુનિક આઈડિયા આવો. કારણ કે મોટાભાગના જે કોઈ કન્સેપ્ટ અથવા જે કોઈ વસ્તુ સબ્જેક્ટિવલ છે એ ઓવરલેપિંગ થાય છે. બે વસ્તુનું ભેગી કરીને આપણે યુનિક આઈડિયાને વિચારીએ છીએ. તો વાસ્તવિકતામાં યુનિક આઈડિયા અથવા તો ઓરિજિનલ આઈડિયા હોઈ શકે?
Okay. Okay, that's fine. Now I'll just try to answer your question. Now unique idea હોઈ શકે કે ન હોઈ શકે. તમને ગ્રેવિટીનો દાખલો આપું. બરાબર? ગ્રેવિટી ઇઝ ફિનોમિનન. જ્યારથી આ અર્થ બની ત્યારથી ગ્રેવિટી છે. વેધર આ 16મી સદીમાં બધી પ્રેસ આવ્યો ત્યારે લખાણની શરૂઆત થઈ કે જે લિટરેચર આપણે ટ્રેસ કરી છે. જ્યારે પ્રેસ નહોતો ત્યારે ગ્રેવિટી તો હતી જ. રામાયણ મહાભારતની આપણે વાત કરી, વેદની વાત કરીએ, વિમાન ઉપર જતું, આ બધા ગ્રેવિટી કન્સેપ્ટ તો હતો જ, જેને આપણે ગ્રેવિટી નામથી ઓળખતા નહોતા, પણ કન્સેપ્ટ ગ્રેવિટી તો હતો જ. એનાથી હું હવે આ જ વસ્તુ તમે ઉલટી રીતે વિચારો, ઇન્વર્ટેડ વી. ઇન્વર્ટેડ વીમાં આવી રીતે વસ્તુ વિચારીએ. જો તમે ગ્રેવિટીની વાત કરતા હોય ને ત્યારે એની એન્ટીથીસિસ, ગ્રેવિટી જે સાયન્ટિફિક ટર્મ છે એનું ઓપોઝિટ સાયન્ટિફિક ટર્મ દેટ ઇઝ કોલ્ડ સરફેસ ટેન્શન. સરફેસ ટેન્શન એટલે ગુજરાતીમાં એને આપણે પૃષ્ઠતાણ કહેવાય. આ પૃષ્ઠતાણ શું છે? ફોર એક્ઝામ્પલ ગ્રેવિટેશન મતલબ સફરજન ઉપરથી નીચે આવે છે જેને ગ્રેવિટેશન આપણે કહીએ છીએ. પૃષ્ઠતાણ શું છે કે જે છેલ્લામાં છેલ્લું ડાળખું છે ઝાડનું એને પાણી મળે છે, જે ગ્રેવિટીની અગેન્સ્ટમાં કામ કરે છે. કારણ કે ગ્રેવિટી તો ઓટોમેટિક આવે, આપ ઓટોમેટિક છે. ધેટ ઇઝ અ નેચરલ ફિનોમિનન. સરફેસ ટેન્શન ઇટસેલ્ફ ઇઝ અ નેચરલ ફિનોમિનન. પાણી નીચેથી ડ્રો કરીને ઉપર જાય છે, તો જ્યારે ગ્રેવિટીની અગેન્સ્ટમાં કામ કરવા માટે પણ એને ડબલ એનર્જી જોઈએ. એક આ બે સાયન્ટિફિક પણ વસ્તુ તમે કહો છો એ આવે છે કે એક્સિડેન્ટલ હોય કે નહીં. હવે જવાબ એનો અહીંયા આવે છે કે જ્યારે આપણે ન્યૂટનની સ્ટોરી, જે આજે ન્યૂટનના લોની બધી વાત કરીએ છીએ આપણે 17th સેન્ચુરી ઓનવર્ડ્સ, જ્યારે ડાયનેમિક્સના બધા લોસ ફાઇન્ડ થયા છે. હવે તમે કહો છો that things can be correlated. આજે ન્યૂટને જોઈને એવું નતું કીધું કે ગ્રેવિટી આવી ગયું, ગ્રેવિટી વર્ડ એને વાપર્યો નતો, પણ થિંગ્સ સ્ટાર્ટ ફ્રોમ ઓબ્ઝર્વેશન. સાયન્સમાં જે વસ્તુને આપણે ઓબ્ઝર્વેશન કહીએ છીએ એને તમે લિટરેચરની ભાષામાં ઇમેજિનેશન અથવા ફિક્શન કહો છો. દેટ ઇઝ ધી ટુ ડિફરન્ટ. મેં તમને શરૂઆતમાં જ કહ્યું, એક વસ્તુ તમારું લિટરેચર છે દેટ ઇઝ સબ્જેક્ટિવ ઇન નેચર, સાયન્સ છે દેટ ઇઝ ઓબ્જેક્ટિવ ઇન નેચર. હવે જ્યારે હું સાયન્સ તરીકે ક્લેમ મૂકું છું, તમે જે જુઓ છો ને તો યુ આર સીઈંગ a subjective perspective when I see the point from objective perspective. પણ પ્રશ્ન અત્યારે એ આવે છે whether you are look at to any phenomenon from subjective point of view to objective point of view, ultimately આ બે વચ્ચેનો ગેપ છે. સબ્જેક્ટિવ થી ઓબ્જેક્ટિવ નું જે ટ્રાન્ઝિશન છે, I have to give evidence, મારે પ્રૂવ કરવું પડે છે. તો જ્યારે ન્યૂટને આ વસ્તુ જોઈ હતી તો એનું સૌથી પહેલા ઓબ્ઝર્વેશન થી થિંકિંગ ચાલુ થઈ. હવે તમે જ્યારે ન્યૂટનની તમે થિયરી જોશો ને, ક્લાસિકલ થિયરી તમને મળશે, આના પેપર્સના ઓરિજિનલ પેપર હાથે લખેલા મળશે, મેન્યુસ્ક્રિપ્ટ. હવે એની અંદર શું છે કે અલ્ટિમેટલી, અથવા બીજો પ્રશ્ન પણ એ પણ આપણે સાથે મૂકીએ કે આ વસ્તુ આટલી લાંબા સમય પછી કેમ સુધારી? તો એનો પ્રશ્ન એ છે કે આ બધું વસ્તુ સાથે સાથે ડેવલપ થઈ. એકલું આપણે ગ્રેવિટી એટલે ફિઝિક્સ છે એવું નથી. જ્યારે F ઇક્વલ ટુ M બાય ની વાત કરીએ છીએ, F ઇક્વલ ટુ mg મૂકીએ છીએ, જે g ના ગ્રેવિટેશનલ ફોર્સ થી આપણે કહીએ છીએ, એ ખરા અર્થમાં તમે જે g ની ગણતરી છે 981 ફિગર્સ મીટર પર સેકન્ડ સ્ક્વેર આવે છે, એ લાવવા માટેનું જે આખું કોમ્પ્લેક્સ મેથેમેટિક્સ જે ડેવલપ થયું હતું ને, કારણ કે ત્યારે મેથેમેટિક્સ ફાઉન્ડેશન એની સાથે લિંક નતું થયું. આપણે ઘટનાને સામાન્ય ઓર્ડિનરી માણસ એને ગ્રેવિટી કહે છે, પણ વિધાઉટ મેથેમેટિક્સ યુ કાન્ટ પ્રૂવ ઇટ. જ્યારે સાયન્સમાં તમે ઓબ્જેક્ટિવલી જ્યારે પ્રૂવ કરવાની વાત કરો છો, સો આ વચ્ચેનો જે ટાઈમ છે એને લગભગ ડેવલપ કરવા માટે 12 થી 22 વર્ષનો સમય લાગેલો છે. યુ કોરિલેટિંગ વિથ મેથેમેટિક્સ, you are finally making a calculation of g having this much exact value. પછી જે પ્રૂવ કરો છો, then world is accepting. મારા ઉપર તમે એક સાથે આવો છો, ધીરે ધીરે આખો ક્લાસ સાથે આવે છે, આખું ભાવનગર પછી દુનિયા માને છે, ત્યારે એક્સેપ્ટેબિલિટી મળે છે આપણને. તો આ જે જર્ની છે ને, that journey needs time. આ જે બિલ્ટઅપ કરવા માટે છે, અને તમારે ઓબ્જેક્ટિવ યુ હેવ ટુ પ્રૂવ. અને મેં તમને કહ્યું ને કે આ સાયન્ટિફિક પ્રૂવ માટે સાયન્સમાં તમારે મેથેમેટિક્સનો પણ એક ઇમ્પોર્ટન્ટ રોલ છે, જેને કોરિલેશનની એક આખી એક લાંબી જર્ની છે. આ જર્ની રાતોરાત થયેલી જર્ની નથી. એમ જે ગ્રેવિટી નામ આવવા માટે પણ એક લાંબો સમય લાગેલો છે. એ દરમિયાન આ તમે કહો છો, એ દરમિયાન લગભગ 1920માં 2-3 બુક્સ આવેલી હતી, ગ્રેવિટેશનલ બી, સાયન્સ ઓડિસી, આ છે બધી બુક્સો છે. ધેટ આર ધ લોજિક બિહાઇન્ડ ઇટ. એગ્રીડ.
તો હ્યુમન કાઇન્ડ અત્યારે જે લેવલ ઉપર છે એ સમહાવ કોઈને કોઈ એક્સિડન્ટ ઉપર ડિપેન્ડન્ટ છે, કે યા કોઈ યુનિક આઈડિયા હતો જે કોઈના દિમાગમાં પહેલા આવ્યો, પછી એણે એની વસ્તુને લઈને ડેવલપ કર્યું. અને ફોર એક્ઝામ્પલ ટાઈમ ટ્રાવેલિંગ. ઓકે, તો ટાઈમ ટ્રાવેલિંગ કન્સેપ્ટ છે એ ફિક્શનની અંદર એ રીતે આવ્યો કે ભાઈ ટાઈમની અંદર આ રીતે ટ્રાવેલિંગ થઈ શકે, આ છે તે છે. બટ એ આઈડિયા ક્યાંથી આવ્યો? કહેવાનો મતલબ યુનિક આઈડિયા કે જે સાયન્સની અંદર, કારણ કે ઇવન પેનિસિલિન ડેવલપ થયું હોય અથવા તો XYZ કોઈ પણ ડિસ્કવરી હોય, અત્યારે આપણે રિસર્ચ કરીએ છીએ. ઇન શોર્ટ, ડિસ્કવરી હવે નથી થતી. તો એની પાછળ કોઈ રીઝન, અથવા તો આપણે હજી ઘણી બધી ફેઝની અંદર આપણે ડાર્ક મેટરની વાત કરીએ, અથવા તો ઘણી બધી વસ્તુ સાયન્સ ફિક્શન છે જે વાસ્તવિકતામાં આપણે હજી જોઈ નથી, આપણે એની વિશે જાણતા નથી. તો એવો કોઈ આઈડિયા આવવો આપણા દિમાગમાં કે જે વાસ્તવિકતામાં આપણે જેને જાણતા જ નથી. ફોર એક્ઝામ્પલ, કોઈ કેવમેન છે, એની માટે આગ છે એક ડિસ્કવરી હતી, રાઈટ? કે આગ બની, પછી આપણે એની અંદર આગળ જઈને ડેવલપમેન્ટ કર્યું કે ભાઈ આગની અંદરથી યુઝ કરી શકો. બટ ફર્સ્ટ થિંગ કે જ્યાંથી વસ્તુનું સીડ છે, નવો આઈડિયા છે, એનું શરૂઆત ક્યાંથી થાય તમારા પર્સપેક્ટિવથી?
લેટ મી અગેન રી-એલોબરેટ ધ પોઈન્ટ. એક મેનેજમેન્ટની ભાષામાં શબ્દ છે લીન પીરિયડ. લીન પીરિયડ કોને કહેવાય ખ્યાલ છે? ઓકે, નાઉ આઈલ ગીવ યુ એક્ઝામ્પલ. ફોર એક્ઝામ્પલ, આ બિલ્ડિંગ બનાવવું છે, કોઈકને આઈડિયા આવ્યો છે ને કે ભાઈ મેડિકલની આવી કોલેજ બનાવી છે, જે કે રીઝન હોય, આ બનાવવાનો આઈડિયા કોઈ ટેબલ ઉપર નક્કી થયો હોય. આજે ફોર એક્ઝામ્પલ હિન્દુસ્તાનના 3 ભાગ પડ્યા, 2 ભાગ પડ્યા. જ્યારે એ આઈડિયા કેવી રીતે ડેવલપ થયો હતો? અંગ્રેજો એ ટેબલ ઉપર નકશો મંગાવેલો, ઓલાને કે ભાઈ પોપ્યુલેશન ડેટા બોલ, અહીંયા આ ટાઈપની કમ્યુનિટી કેટલી, આ ટાઈપની. દે ડ્રો એ લાઇન, ધેટ ઇઝ કોલ્ડ મેકમિલન લાઇન. They simply cut out the line and then partition happens, right? So some point is started from somewhere. પણ આ દરમિયાન આ બધું થવા માટે કે કઈ જગ્યામાં આ થશે, આ થશે, આ થશે, તો આ બિલ્ડિંગ બનાવવા માટે સૌથી પહેલા કોઈને આઈડિયા આવ્યો હશે, પછી 5-7 માણસોને ભેગા કર્યા હશે, જે કઈ પરમિશન હશે, આ હશે, તે હશે, લીધી હશે, આર્કિટેક્ચરને બોલાવ્યો હોય, કઈ જગ્યાએ આઈડેન્ટિફાઈ કરવી. પછી તમે પહેલી ક્યારે જોશો? બિંગ એ લેમેન, લાઈક જે તમે એક્સિડન્ટ જેને કહો છો, તમે ક્યારે જોશો કે ખાડા ખોદાવાનું શરૂ થાય, અહીંયા કંઈક બની રહ્યું છે, તે તમારા માટે એક્સિડેન્ટલ પોઈન્ટ છે. પણ ખરા અર્થમાં એક્સિડેન્ટલ પોઈન્ટ એ નથી. એ પોઈન્ટ એને લીન પીરિયડ કહેવાય. એની આગળ આ તમે એક વસ્તુ કરો છો એક્સ્ટ્રાપોલેટ, આ છે ઇન્ટ્રાપોલેટ. તમે જે વાત કરો છો હવે ઇન્ટ્રાપોલેટ પણ ઇમેજિનેશન છે. ગોધાણી સાહેબને ખબર પડી કે ભાઈ સૌથી પહેલા જોયું કે આજે એક મજૂર આવ્યો, કંઈક થઈ રહ્યું છે. એમ જોશી સાહેબને 2 મહિના પછી ખબર પડી કે ભાઈ આ પાયા ખોદાય છે કંઈક, હવે આ બિલ્ડિંગ પછી નાનું હશે કે મોટું હશે. આ સાહેબ બીજા 2 મહિના પછી સાહેબ આવશે, દિલીપ સાહેબ, લાગે છે કે આ 1 માળનું બિલ્ડિંગ છે. આ સાહેબ એવા કે 7 માળની બિલ્ડિંગ બને છે. પણ એનું જે તમે એક્સ્ટ્રાપોલેશન થી ઊંધું તમે ઇન્ટ્રાપોલેશન કરશો એને લીન પીરિયડ કહેવાય. લીન પીરિયડ મે બી એનીથિંગ. કોઈ આ માણસે કર્યું હશે, કોઈ વિચારીને બંધ કરી દીધું, તમારા મનમાં કઈ વિચાર આવે છે, પછી તમે 2 વર્ષે 4 વર્ષે પછી હાલો હવે થયું. આ તમારા ફાધરે મકાન બનાવવાનું કરતા હશે, હોય શકે તમારા ફાધર 5 વર્ષ પહેલા વિચારતા હોય, પછી 7-8 વર્ષે મકાન બન્યું હોય, હોય શકે કોઈ રાતોરાત બની જાય. પાડોશીને એવું લાગે આ ભાઈ તો હમણાં કાલ ગયા સોદો કરીને આવી ગયા, પણ એવું ના થયું હોય. આને લીન પીરિયડ કહેવાય. એનું બેક કામ તો શરૂ થતું જ હોય માઇન્ડમાં. મારા તમારા બધા માઇન્ડ કોઈ પણ એક્ટિવિટી માટે થતું હોય. તો એક્સિડેન્ટલ વસ્તુ આ છે કે તમે નોટિસ કરો છો, પણ એનો મતલબ એવો નથી કે પેલા અસ્તિત્વ નતું ધરાવતું, પણ કોઈને ખબર નથી. એમ ખબર ક્યારે પડે કે બહાર આવે ત્યારે. મને ઉલટી થાય તો જ ખબર પડે કે મારી તબિયત બગડી છે, પણ અત્યારે અંદર ઓલરેડી એસિડ બનાવવાનો રિફ્લક્સ ચાલુ થઈ ગયો, તમને ખબર ના હોય. એટલે આ વસ્તુ છે. આઈ થિંક આઈ કમ્યુનિકેટેડ મેસેજ ટુ યુ સર. હા પ્લીઝ સર.
So a year or two ago, I watched a movie named Control, and where the protagonist, she is making AI her friend, and the AI is manipulating her data and using her to do unethical things.
Right.
So in contemporary times, how the science fiction can reflect the current technological and social anxieties on human mind because of this social media pressure and the pressure of digital connectivity.
Now, see, it's again highly subjective, madam. Let's see. You see a movie, same movie you see along with your 3-4 friends.
Yes.
I say, what message, madam, you are drawing out of it? For example, you are telling me such and such song was so beautiful.
Yes.
You can correlate with Lata Mangeshkar or Asha Bhosle, anything. Your next friend were telling, the cinematic vision was so beautiful, where I see the some heights, the color combination. Somebody can see from cosmetic point of view, somebody can see from music point of view. So point is like everybody see the same event, but the way in which what the point you are looking for, that impact is different to you than your fellow friends. So you can't say what impact it will make. In similar magnitude, same impact will be made to your fellow friends. It may be more, less, or no effect, or very extreme effect. So it's a objective term, madam. So we can't concretize like, but definitely effects is there. But what you want to take it out, so same angle, like you want to take it same view from utopic point of view or dystopic point of view, it's up to you, madam.
Okay.
That's you have to decide which content I have to see and which content I don't have to.
For her own health, she started talking because she was not able to make any friends, or she was just lonely, and the technology used her and made her do certain things, and in the end she lost someone close to her because of that AI, and the person died. That is purely a fiction.
Correct.
But in this current world, is that causing any hindrance to us, or that is laying out a message that you should be careful about technology, or
Okay. Now I'll give you a very simple illustration. That's what Rajneesh used to give, madam. Point is, like same thing. You want to make a friend? Like most of you are telling everybody has to socialize, right? Most of us are agreeing with this point. Agree? But I think there are few person here in the same hall. They are telling, I want to have a spiritual angle, so I don't want to have any affection. If person are going away from me, I would be happy. There are 5%. So that depends. You want attachment or detachment. Both are good. Attachment having its own way. To deal with the attachment, their methodology is different. To deal with the detachment, their methodology is different. So at the end of the day, you have to decide what you want. So you have to follow the pathway of attachment or detachment. It's up to you.
okay.
Done, sir. So thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. To offer a token of gratitude, I invite Godani sir to offer the memento to Pragnesh Dave sir. Thank you, sir. I now request Ms. Megha Trivedi to introduce the third plenary speaker to the audience, Mr. Aaron George.
Mr. Aaron George, who is currently serving as the program coordinator and assistant professor in the Department of English and Cultural Studies at the Christ deemed to be University, Pune, Lavasa campus. He has qualified the UGC NET examination and is presently pursuing his PhD in English. His research interests include digital humanities, game studies, popular culture, narratology, mythology, and folklore. He has presented research papers at national and international conferences and has also served as a resource person for lecture on digital humanities and video game narratives. So now I would like to invite Aaron sir for the session. The stage is yours. Thank you, sir.
Very good afternoon. So this session will be two parts, basically. The first part will be a very brief introduction on video games and video game studies. And the second part is where I'll be taking a paper that I had written called New Weird Appeal of Digital Mythologies Within the Video Game Control. And I'll apply whatever I'm talking in the first half to the paper here to talk about how game studies or video games, I should say, is a perfect combination of the field of science and the field of literature. Because in video games, you need programming, architecture, art, and then you also need the artistic part for the character creation, the stories. So it really is a good combination of the two fields. Now, before we get into that, just looking at video games as where it started, the history of it. Initially, it was very humble. It was all physical moving parts, all analog components. So this brown box that I'm currently showing on the screen, it's like a collection of different games, all that can be done physically. So cards and dice and things like that. Eventually, as the technology got better, the gaming also got more sophisticated, more complicated. The first video game, if you want to call it that, is this game called Tennis for Two by William Higginbotham in the 1950s. So he was a MIT student, and this was his a computer science student, and this was his project basically. And then after that, it became more commercialized, starting from the 1960s to the 1970s. In the 70s, you had this company called Atari, who were formerly trading cards. They were used to trade baseball cards, make trading baseball cards. Then they went into the game studies, game industry, and they had the first console, which is the Atari 2600 in the 1970s, which is when gaming became less about things that you saw in the arcade and more about things that you could do at home. And then eventually, a lot of these companies started to realize how much money there was in this particular field, and they started to just make games without any plan. They just wanted to license as much as possible, put out as much as possible. And one of the big things was tie-ins with a lot of these other movies that were coming out. So one of the biggest or most infamous examples is this video game tie-in to the Steven Spielberg movie E.T., which came out in 1980 in the 80s. But the problem is they made so many boxes, but nobody was actually buying it because the game itself was not very good. And it caused such a big, there was so much supply, but not enough demand, that the whole industry almost completely collapsed in this particular decade. But then after that, what happened is you have this Japanese studio called Nintendo. How many of you know about Pokemon? Yes, I think at least most of you don't even play games, at least heard this brand. So yeah, Nintendo is the studio behind Pokemon, one of the most popular franchises in the world. And they were also a trading card company like Atari were. And they also entered into the video game scene in about the 1980s. And that is really where the whole industry kind of formally started, mostly in Japan with Nintendo and their competitor, which was Sega. And then there is a trend that some of you might have noticed. As the technology got better and better, the games also got more and more complex. So one of the first big steps forward was disc-based gaming, CD discs, compact discs. The first one to properly utilize it was PlayStation, Sony's PlayStation. And interestingly, this was supposed to be like a joint collaboration between Sony and Nintendo, but for whatever reason, the plan did not go through, and Sony decided to push it on their own. And the rest is history. Like PlayStation is one of the most recognizable game brands nowadays, right? But what I was saying is regarding how compact discs allowed for these games to become more and more complex. And that is a constant trend that we see even nowadays, right? As the technology gets better, the games become more complex. And the makers behind these games can tell more complex stories also. And then, of course, we come to the personal computer, the PC. Up until, let's say, the mid 2000s, it was mostly just fully console, either the Sony's PlayStation or Microsoft's Xbox. And then, but as the PC market got better and a lot more people were able to buy and have their own home computer, that became also a separate market. Now, just to really give a good comparison of how much the technology has progressed in just 20 years, this is a screenshot from a game that came out in 1987, Final Fantasy VII, almost 30 years ago. And in 2020, somewhere in 2020, they remade the game completely from scratch with modern day technology and software and everything. And this is what it looks like right now. Almost indistinguishable from real life. And as I said, this is a trend that is always there in game studies, right? We need to kind of keep our pulse on the technology there. Otherwise, it's very difficult to understand how these games are functioning. So one of the big things is AI. To make all these characters in the game very lifelike, a lot of these studios are turning to artificial intelligence to kind of simulate like a real person. And if that wasn't enough, just to kind of give you some idea about how much money the industry is worth, this is a very old, outdated graph that is there from 2021, showing how much total net worth the industry is. This is almost double what it is right now. But the video game industry is worth more than the film and book industry combined. So just to give you some idea of how much money it's worth. Now, coming to the second half of what I wanted to talk about, it's a paper that I had written called The New Weird, Examining Digital Mythologies Through the Video Game Control. So what is the new weird? It's basically a subgenre of science fiction, if you want to call it that, looking at how mythology, folklore, urban legends, how are they kind of portrayed in this new digital era, right? When everything is so easily explained by science, how is mythologies and folklore still surviving to this day? Why are we still so interested in all these stories, even though they were written 1,000, 2,000 years ago? What is the reason behind it? And the new weird is a subgenre of that science fiction where they kind of recontextualize a lot of these stories in a digital format. So as I see here, the second point there, the adaptation of mythologies and myth-making in the digital age, using digital technologies such as games to kind of keep that same spirit of mythologies preserved. So human beings are two things. One is we are story makers, and the second is we are myth makers. It is ingrained in who we are as a species. We are always making stories, we are always making myths. And just because we are in a scientific digital age does not mean that we have stopped making stories and stopped making myths. We've only kind of moved it to a different platform. Yeah, this is not important. I'll just skip over this. So this is like a brief overview of what the digital weird is. Weird fiction punctures the supposed membrane separating off the sublime and allows switch of that awe and horror from beyond back into the everyday. So kind of trying to recapture that mysterious feeling of the world around us. That same feeling that our ancestors might have had 1,000, 2,000 years ago when they looked at the natural world. They didn't have the knowledge that we have right now. How did they rationalize all of this? How did they try to explain all this? They use mythologies, they use folklores, they use urban legends, right? So New Weird is trying to capture that same feeling, that same kind of mystery, that same kind of wonder, that childlike wonder that we have looking at the world around us. Okay, so one of the big things that I was focusing on is this collaborative online weird fiction site called the SCP Foundation. I don't know how many of you have heard of this website. It's a little bit of a niche thing. So what this is, SCP Foundation, is basically like a collaborative storytelling thing. It's a small community where the whole narrative is centered around this fictional organization called the SCP Foundation, where their whole goal is to kind of capture and contain these monsters and everything like that. Okay, so the way the stories are written, it's written as if it's all real. They're written in the form of scientific articles detailing, what monster they've captured, what is the process by which this monster needs to be contained, what is the incident that has happened if these safety procedures are not contained. So it's very much like a government scientific document that they've written, and they have a specific template that they follow when these articles are written. And they use this format to tell stories about, to kind of comment on the real world. There's one particular story that I was very fond of, talking about South American guerrilla groups, right? How they were trying to resist American influence, North American, US specifically in their influence, right? And they used the SCP Foundation as kind of like a stand-in for the US. And they talked about how they were using monsters and magic and everything to fight back against it. It's very clear what the author was trying to do, because they probably were from one of these South American countries, but they were using this framework to talk about something that was happening in their own country. Okay, so people or the contributors to this website, they all know it's fictional, and there is some sort of loose universe that is there, but each story is very self-contained. And it's very interesting because this type of framework would not exist outside of a digital space, right? Where everybody can just jump in and create a story, and everybody can comment, and it's free for everybody to see. Okay, so this is one of the ways in which the new weird kind of survives in this modern age, right? Through the digital age. Now, coming to the game that I had picked, Control, it is a game that is primarily based on this whole idea of new weird and new fiction, right? It's meant to evoke the sense of being a superhero and fit within the context of a digital text. So you are playing as this character, and she gets all these various superpowers and everything, but it's very much framed in the context of the prior thing, of this SCP Foundation thing, where everything is very mysterious. Not everything is told to you, and it's deliberately meant to kind of make you confused. Okay. Now, the big thing about video games compared to something like a novel or something like a movie is that the player has a direct control over what is going on. In a novel, you can't really tell the characters what to do, right? The character will just do whatever they are supposed to do as the author says so. But in a game, you are the main character. You are the one who is making the choices. You are the one who is interacting with the fiction. And that is very different than any other medium. That direct control that you have over where the story is supposed to go. What is the overall plot? What is your character's motivation? That is all decided by the player. And unlike a novel or a movie, it demands that you interact with it. If there is no interaction, then nothing can happen. How many of you play games? Can I get a show of hands? Okay. I don't mean just on PC or whatever. On phone is also fine, right? So does the game move forward if you don't do anything? Does it automatically progress? Yes or no? Yes, can I get an answer? Does the game automatically move forward if you don't do anything? No, right? You need to press some button, do something, otherwise it'll just be there like that, static. But unlike a movie, if you just press the play button, it'll keep going. It doesn't ask you, are you paying attention? Doesn't pause and say, are you paying attention? Only if you answer this question, I'll resume playing the movie. No, but a game is the complete opposite. If the player is not actively there and participating, nothing will happen. Okay. And because of that framework, it's very easy for the player to get to feel like they're a part of this world, right? To feel like they are there inside this story, and they're actively shaping how it is going and how it is taking place, and what is going to happen. And this is like the perfect blend, I think, of science and literature, basically, because it takes a lot of programming in knowledge and information to kind of make this even happen, right? To make certain that whatever the player is doing is programmed to happen, right? But not in a way that makes it so obvious, right? It should feel that the player is making the choices on their own. And because of that, it's an easy platform also to kind of make mythologies also work in the digital space. So as I said, this game takes a lot of inspiration from the SCP thing. It's very obvious where the inspiration comes from. And it's meant to kind of make the player feel like a superhero, basically. Your main character, the character that you're playing as, she gets all these various superpowers and she's able to move things with her mind and throw things and all that stuff. And it makes the player feel very powerful. And that feeling is something that a lot of games try to capture. And within that framework of this digital text is where all this happens. Okay. Now, what I found when looking through all of this and looking through when I was doing the research for this paper and everything is these digital platforms. It's so different than other mediums because it allows the reader and the player to form a deeper connection with what they're reading. Because instead of just passively reading it and just looking at it and observing it, it forces you to engage. If that engagement is not there, then you simply don't take anything from it. It refuses to move on, it refuses to go forward, and it just stops. Now, there is I'm not really from a programming background or computer science background, I should say. So for the back half of how these games work, I'm not very knowledgeable about. I have some knowledge, some knowledge of it, but that's a very like a layman's perspective. But even then, without that information that you know and understand how these games are made, how these games are operated, it's very difficult to understand. So, for example, let's take a game like GTA 5, for example. How many of you have played GTA 5 or any GTA game? Yeah. So, do you know how the city in those games work? Can someone just answer how all of these characters, how they are working? All these random side characters that are there. Do you know what goes into in the back? What the player does not see? Anyone? Anyone knowledgeable about how games work? No one?
Sir, I know a little bit that games work on the background. They don't load the whole map together. They load block by block. So right now they are also using one technique. I think it was by I forgot the name of the company. They do only the area that you are looking. It is that only area is loaded on computer, on your RAM, and when you switch to another area, the previous area which was a load or block, it got unloaded from RAM, and new loading screen or like it uses also tricks to load that particular graphic block of that area.
Yes, it's a very good example. So that's actually a very common technique in many games where they don't load the whole area. For example, if you're playing GTA, for example, the whole city does not load in by itself, right? It loads in sections, and only as you move further away or closer to like a building, only then does the full model actually show up, right? So they have a model of a building that they've made, that they've designed, and they put into the map, but you don't see it if you're very far away. You see like a very rough block that is there, but only as you get closer does the full actual model line up, right? So it's a good example because it kind of I can think of something else that really works here. So there's this horror franchise called Silent Hill. I don't know if how many of you heard. There's a recent movie adaptation that came out. the very first Silent Hill came out on the PlayStation 1, the very first PlayStation console. Now, when they were making that game, they realized that there was a big programming hurdle that they couldn't get past. They had this big town in which the game was taking place in, but the PlayStation was not strong enough to actually load the whole town. So what they did was to kind of trick the player into thinking that the whole map is there. They put this kind of like a fog-like thing over the whole map, to like a mist that surrounds the whole landscape. And as the player moves, it loads the buildings automatically, right? But the player doesn't see it because it's blocked by the mist. Now, when the game came out, the people thought the game was very scary because of the atmosphere, and lot of the reviewers talked about the fog, the mist, how the mist made the whole game seem much scarier than it should have been. Now, this mist was just a band-aid fix that they put just to kind of prevent the game from getting broken. But this workaround kind of made the whole experience much better, because if that mist was not there, the game would not have been as scary. And because it was not have been as scary, they would not have gotten very good reviews. And now it's a very big franchise now, Silent Hill, right? So now this is what I'm talking about. Like, if you don't understand how how the stuff happens in the background, it's difficult to kind of understand game studies as a whole, right? It's a very interesting field, game studies, because it's not just the literature part that is there, but also all of this information, understanding how the back end works, understanding how these games are made, and understanding what is the mindset of the developers who make these games, right? So when they made something like Control, for example, you can kind of guess what the intention was, right? The intention was to create this very mysterious feeling game, kind of where the player does not know what is going on, and they are left to, it's like a puzzle piece, right? It's like a puzzle. They put the puzzle pieces in front of the player, and the player has to arrange it accordingly. Now, I would say there's about maybe 40-50 people in this room. If all of you were to play the same game, all of you would come back with a different experience, right? Now, that's true for any medium, but it's doubly so for games, because all of you engage with games in a different way. If there are 2 paths or 3 paths, let's say, not all of you will go down the left path. Some of you might go down the center path. Some of you might go down the right path. Now, games allow that choice to happen, right? It's like a maze, basically, right? It's like this big maze that is there, and the player has options to pick which paths to take. Some of it might be a dead end, but some might be the correct path. But the player feels like it is their choice, and is what is their choice is the one that matters the most, and they are getting something out of it. Okay, so this is basically what game studies is all about: looking at games as not just texts, but also as works of programming. What is the code that goes into it? How have they kind of made this game to work as it is, right? There's so many tricks that they use to kind of trick the player, how they play around with the camera angles. So, for example, in a lot of these like movie-like scenes where the characters in the game are talking, sometimes it's very difficult to get the character models to change how you want it to change, right? So what they do is they either shrink the model, or they make the model even bigger to kind of trick the player into thinking like maybe the character is getting bigger or getting smaller. So instead of doing something like that, they would shrink the room itself, and it would kind of give the illusion that the character is shrinking or getting bigger. So if you're into programming, or if you're into games, this is a very interesting field to pursue, and it's quite novel also. Not a lot of research is being done on it, because the field also is quite new. Games as a medium has only existed for about 20-30 years. It seems like a long time, but in terms of other mediums like novels or films or even photography, it's still very young. And a lot of the theories that people use to read a game is taken directly from film. So that proper theories for game analysis is still not there, although it's still being done. So those of you who are interested, this is the perfect time to really start. If you're not really a literature person, but if you're more into games, this is like a very good place for you to kind of get engaged, because in another 10-15 years maybe it'll be completely filled with people all doing research on this particular field. So it's very new and it's still very young. So yeah, highly recommend that you start getting into it and getting your research done into it if you're inclined that way, because otherwise it'll be very difficult to break into this particular field. So that's about it for my session. Thank you so much for your attention. Now I will field any questions that you may have.
Hello, sir. It was indeed informative session. I have a question regarding this weird fiction. So you gave the example of this control game. So is there any Indian fiction, like Indian game fiction, which we can give an example? Indian video game which has a connection with mythology.
Yes, there is this studio based in Pune called Nodding Head. They have made this game called Raji. I don't know how many of you have heard of it. It's fully based on, I'm forgetting the story of the game, but it's very much based on Indian mythology and folklore and legends. They're actually working on a second game now, a sequel to that also. There's this other very interesting game. It's not really mythology centered, but it's a game called Venba. Okay, it's like a cooking game basically. It focuses on this South Indian family who have migrated to Canada, and it talks about how difficult it is for them to kind of adjust to living in Canada and the struggles. And their son is also, he doesn't really speak in the mother tongue, he speaks in English, and both the parents are very concerned about this, and they use traditional South Indian food recipes to talk about connecting with Indian heritage and culture. So if you're interested, you can look at these two games, Venba, which is Venba, and Raji, Raji. So these Indian games are very niche, I would say. There are not many Indian game studios that are there, and if they are, they're very, very small, or mostly all of them are all focused on mobile games. And yeah, because of that, the gaming scene in India is not as big as it should be. But there's so much talent here in the country. But hopefully something comes up. Like at least one studio that I'm aware of, which is a Pune-based studio, Nodding Head, and they've made one game and they're making a second game now. So you can definitely have a look at them if you're so interested.
Sir, as we have film studies in our syllabus, so films studies, if you see, it is in a kind of mature stage. So if this game industry and all these things are in a young stage right now, if we see. So if it flourished, can there are possibilities that it will also occupy or create its place in academic studies also?
Yeah, I would say academically it's already there. So in my university, we already have a course on game studies, and we're already teaching it and doing all these theories that are there. So what I said earlier is that film has a very big history behind it, right? Almost 200 years of history that is there. So it has had a long time to get its theory, film theory and everything, right? But games are still very young, and that opportunity for it to develop has not happened yet. So a lot of the theory that you see for games, it's borrowed directly from film. But the problem with that is it's not compatible, because films are spectators, right? You are a very passive participant there. But games is not like that. And because of that one difference, you can't directly apply film theory to game theory, to games, right? So game theory, not the mathematical one, the video game theory, I mean, it's still quite new, right? It's there, but not many people have discussed it or taken it further. So that's why I was, telling all of you that since it's very young, it's very easy to get into nowadays. Because if you give it 10, 20 years, it'll be very difficult because everybody will be all over this. And if not for because it's new, but because of the money that is involved, right? As I said, gaming industry very big, more than film and music industry. If you can even imagine that, how many movies, how much money does a movie bring in nowadays, right? And that's nothing to a game, right? And if people are not interested in because it's new, they will be interested because the money is there. So this is a very good time to start if you haven't already started. Yeah.
Like in comparison with this film industry and all, it has a film this gaming industry has a limitation. Like government has to also have this restriction upon it, because film industry directly shows the realism whatever is prevalent in society. So but game industry does not. So I think it has limitations also.
In India, at least, that has already happened. A few months ago, I don't remember if it was last year or sometime this year, this was like big news, at least at the time, where they banned all these live betting games, right? So I think, so those games no longer are available to be played anywhere in the country. It's completely illegal. When they made that ban, they also approved all of these other games, the games that I was talking about, right? Games there is no like monetary value that is there, right? So the direct quote that I remember, remembering, paraphrasing a little bit, is that they wanted these live betting games to go away, but they're giving a lot of money and approval and resources to actual game studios, right? So if you look at all of these companies that were there in India who are making all of these betting games, they have completely moved to making actual games, right? Because you have this big group of talented coders and programmers, and suddenly, like in 2 days time, they had no jobs. Instead of dissolving the company and firing all of this talent, they simply moved and say, why not just make games of our own? And the government is fully approved of that, because they know and understand there is so much money to be made in this industry, right? The Western countries are already doing it, and thankfully our government also has understood where there is so much to be had here, and they are choosing to go for that also. Okay, so, and I don't remember when this happened, but this has already happened. At least our government has been very quick to accept it and to regulate it already. So thankfully, maybe in a couple years time, we'll see more and more Indian games being made. Already there is one that is supposed to be like an Indian GTA. I've seen a few trailers here and there. Looks very promising. It's still, very much early stages, and it might take some time to get to the level of, the technical accomplishment that something like any Western studio is there. But already there is so much promise that is there. So we just need time. I think in a decade's time or something, maybe even less than that, we'll start seeing a lot of Indian games coming out. Yes. I'll throw that question back to you. Yes, sir. What do you think?
Because of the narratives in that fixed gaming.
Yeah,
is it?
I mean, anything can be literature if you really, twist the definition further that much, right? Even
Yes.
something like a restaurant menu can be literature if you look at it, right? If you look at a restaurant menu and you think of it as literature, how would you, what is the justification that you can think of? This is something that I ask my students all the time. If you are saying a restaurant menu is literature, why? I can already explain why, but think of it, think an answer.
No. I think she has answer
Yeah,
for this.
someone has an answer. Yeah.
So we can consider gaming as a part of interactive literature and visually interactive literature. Like, of course, movies are there, but this is two-way interaction. Like like you also mentioned that we have to control the person we are impersonating in that game. So we can consider this as a part of interactive literature. And my question to you is that if we want to further study about this interactiveness in literature aligning with the gaming, then what should we consider first in our research or in our ability? And a person with a non-scientific or computerized background, I am asking, like, what shall we?
It's fine if you don't have a computer background to study games. Like if you're going into making games, then definitely you will need some programming background. There is no shortcut to that. Even if you're going into writing for games, you need some programming background, or at the very least, you need to understand how the coding works. They might not ask you to code, but they will ask you to understand, because one of the main conflicts that is there. You guys can sit. So one of the main conflicts that is there when a game is being made is that it's split into so many different teams. You have one writing team, you have one artist team, you have one programming team, you have one architecture team, and they all need to communicate with each other, right? It's not like a film production, let's say, where everything is part of the same thing and they're all working towards something, right? All these four teams in a game, when they're making a game, they usually operate independently. So a lot of the times, the programming team and the writing team are not talking to each other, which results in a lot of problems. The writing team wants this, very big action scene to happen in the story, but the programming team knows that it cannot happen because it's very difficult for them to do it. And so they say, no, we can't do this. You have to tone it down, right? Sometimes that can be good, like the example that I gave for Silent Hill, right? How they had to deliberately put this fog thing to make the game, not laggy, right? Sometimes it can work, but sometimes like nowadays for modern gaming, that shortcut doesn't work any longer, right? Nowadays, games budgets are so big that there is no room for that type of failure. So to answer your question now, even if you're from a literature background, I'm from a literature background, right? And this is my area of study. So instead of approaching it from, let's say, like a science background, like a programming background, if you look at any research paper that is there on, if you just go to Google Scholar, type up game studies or video game, so many, the first 5 pages at least are just economics or psychology or a combination of those two, right? Nothing else. There's very, very few things from the literature perspective, right? It's there here and there, but it's buried way deep in the search, right? So, which is why it's a good time to start, because people have already started, right? There are already conferences and things happening based on games, and like you said, games are a part of a bigger thing called interactive fiction. Interactive fiction is already very old. How many of you have read Goosebumps? One person at least. So some of the Goosebumps books have this thing where you read it, and at the end of the page, it gives you an option. Turn to page 60 if you want the character to do this. Turn to page 40 if you want the character to do this. That is interactive fiction, right? All of you have used Wikipedia, right? You know what HTML links are, right? What is an HTML link? It's those blue highlights, right? That is interactive fiction. There is a game on Wikipedia that you can play. How fast can you reach this page from this page? For example, how fast can you reach the Wikipedia page for India when you start from the Wikipedia page from United States? How fast can you go from A to B by clicking all these hyperlinks? That is a game. That is interactive fiction, right? And you can make interactive fiction through Canva also, right? You don't have to know any programming. If you know how Canva works, you can make the person swap between all the slides and they can play the game that way, right? So even if you're not from a programming background, or if you don't know any coding, and you can always learn coding, you don't have to know it or understand it to study or understand games. If you're making games, it's a different story. But if you're reading them or analyzing them like you would any movie or novel, then you don't need a programming background. You can just examine them purely based on the themes and the characters and the story. That's perfectly fine. And it's good to do it because, like I said, there's very few papers that are like that. Most papers on games, as I said, are all about the economics, all about the psychology, or some combination of those two. So it's a very good time to start doing research there. So hopefully in 2 years time, I should see papers from here about GTA or like Candy Crush or something. That would be very nice to see. I would love to see something like that. Any other questions? Yeah, one question. Yeah.
Hello. So this is a very simple question, but I would like to know your take on this. So the question is, can video game spaces be understood as a form of spatial or embodied hypertext, where player movement replaces the act of clicking? We do in hypertext fiction, clicking links and meaning emerges through exploration. So the question is basically framed by Murray-Lowry Ryan's theory of immersion and interactivity. Now, I want to ask you, what is your take on both the things, immersion and interactivity
Okay.
going simultaneously?
So it's a two-part question.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first part, I will say, spatial settings are very important in games. Okay, so I didn't really talk about it there because it's too much theory. I didn't want to go into theory. But there's this concept in game studies called magic circle. So instead of explaining what it is, I'll just give you an example. Imagine there is a chessboard that is sitting here. Okay. Now, as you're walking past, do you think of anything when you see it? What goes through your mind? You're just thinking of it as a chessboard, right? Nothing else, nothing more, right? Just a normal, simple chessboard. But when you're sitting down with another person and you're playing it, does the meaning behind it change? Yes or no? It does, right? Because right now, when you're playing the game, when you're sitting down and engaging with the game's rules and the setting, the whole space of that board changes. It doesn't just become some random board. You're thinking of opening moves, thinking about what the opponent is doing. You're thinking about, should I castle here? Should I move here? Should I move my queen here? Should I move the rook here? Right? All of these things are going through your mind, which you never would even think about if you were not playing it. That is the magic circle, right? It's simply the space that you are in mentally, can be physical also, when you are engaging with a game. When you step onto a basketball court, you are stepping into the magic circle. What are the rules for basketball? You would know it in the back of your mind, you would obey it. And within those rules, the space is created. Video games are the exact same. When you are playing a game, you are, at least you should be, accepting the rules of what the game is saying. And that space that is there is the digital space. And there is so much already done on video game spaces and how they work. There is this one game called, okay, let's take a simpler example, GTA, for example. So there's a lot of work that they do in making these cities that are there in the GTA games as believable as possible, right? The way that the city districts are separated, the way that the non-player characters, the NPC characters, how they move around, the traffic, the way they move, how are the roads placed, if there is some natural environment, how is that forest and river, how are they flowing, does it make geographical sense, right? So much thought and attention is given because they know that if it doesn't make sense, the player will not feel like they are immersed. So immersion is a very big word in games, right? It's a big word in any medium, but very much so in games, right? Because it's so easy to break that immersion, to drag the person out of the magic circle. The big thing is bugs and glitches, right? So for example, if a character's like, if the model of their hand goes backward and stretches at some weird angle, right? That's a bug. It's not supposed to happen, but it happens. But the player doesn't see it that way. They see it as something that is breaking their immersion. They are, maybe they are in a very serious conversation with this character, but for some reason their head turns all the way around, right? It happens. It's not foolproof. But when that happens, the player feels like they're not paying attention to that. They're paying attention to the glitch, right? So a lot of attention is placed on making sure that this space that the player is in is as, you know, foolproof as possible, right? Making sure that it exists in a way that feels believable. Okay. Sorry, what was the second part of your question?
So this watching or playing a game with fully immersing and also interacting. So I'm connecting with that with my research thing.
So
Hypertext.
watching a game is very different than playing a game. Right? Now, watching games is a big thing. There's a whole industry that runs on it, right? It's called streaming, right? And so many YouTube videos about people playing games. Now, but so many times when you're watching someone else play the game, there are so many times that you will be thinking, I would be doing this differently, or I would do this differently. Why is he doing it like this? You know, and that's the thing. You can't say that to a movie, right? You can't really say that to a novel or a television show. But when you're watching someone else play a game, you're not the one playing it. Someone else is playing it, and because they are the ones who are making the decisions. But when you're playing the game, you will do things differently. You will go somewhere else, or you'll make a different choice. You make your character choose a different dialogue option, right? And it's because of that interactivity that everything that it's a very separate medium. And also why I was saying earlier that you can't apply film theory to games, because it's just not compatible, right? That's the biggest flaw right now with game studies, is that a lot of the game studies theory that is there is directly taken from film theory. Now, film theory is fine for film, but it doesn't work for games, right? So because games are not it's not a spectator medium, right? Film is a spectator medium. You're just sitting there and you're watching, fine. But games don't work like that. You can make it a spectator thing, but you playing the game and watching someone else play the game is two totally different things. And unfortunately, there is no theory that is there to bridge that gap just yet. There are some people who have tried. There's one person named Espen Aarseth, ESPENAARSETH. Yes, exactly. Yes. So his is a name that you can't really avoid when you're doing game studies. His name always comes up. This person and another person is Jesper Juhl. Both European scholars, right? And two of these names are names that you always find when you are doing research on any interactive fiction, right? Even though they wrote their texts almost 20, 30 years ago, they are still following it now because nothing else has come to bridge that gap. The only thing that even comes close is from the developer side. But learning from a game developer is not really good because they're looking at it from the perspective of how do I make the game? But it's not about how you're reading the game, right? And that question has not been answered. How do we read a game? That has still not been answered. Cybertext is there, but the problem with cybertext is it's outdated. It was written in the 1990s, 30 years ago almost, right? And what he thought of was games and what games are right now is so different. And he makes a lot of good predictions in cybertext about what games would be, but I don't think even he would have known where it would have gone, right? Talking about virtual reality or artificial intelligence or augmented reality and mobile gaming, so many different things. He could never have imagined all of that. But unfortunately, there is no theory that has come up in the meantime. We're forced to rely on this text that is very much outdated. I know that he, of all people, would have liked to bridge that gap, but it's not there. And unfortunately, I also cannot answer it. I'm trying to answer it, but it's a very big task, right? And because it's a very new medium, right? Now, 30 years doesn't sound new, but in terms of other mediums like film photography, it's very, very young, right? And if you saw my presentation, I showed the comparison between two games, one in 1990s, one in 2020, and jump in 20 years. And we can't really predict what games will look like 5-10 years from now. It'll be completely different. What we think as new trends might not even work. Facebook, they made this whole change to Meta and all of that, but nothing happened. They thought that virtual reality would be the future, but nobody was interested, right? So yeah, that's kind of how it is right now. And unfortunately, until someone comes up with some theory to really properly read and understand games, we are forced to rely on the older texts. So that's what not a very satisfactory answer, I know, but hopefully at least some part of your question I have answered.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. If you have any other questions, you can just approach me and ask me directly. So thank you also, Dilip sir, for this wonderful opportunity. And I hope we have more sessions and more interactions in the future. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. I think the key takeaway in this case from game studies and interactive fiction is that making is the theory. If you don't make, you don't know. And if you don't play, you don't know. So then that is where things are. Now I would like to request Bharat sir to offer the token of gratitude, the memento, to Mr. Aaron George. Thank you, sir. Next, we are moving on to the final and fourth address, for the day. And to introduce our fourth speaker, I request Ms. Megha Trivedi. And
Professor Bharat C. Gohil is currently serving as a professor and head of the Department of Life Science at Maharaja Krishna Kumar CG Bhavnagar University, Bhavnagar. He has more than 25 years of teaching experience and extensive research experience in the field of animal population, ecology, and environmental sciences. Dr. Gohil has published over 40 research papers in national and international journals and has also authored several books, book chapters, and in the field of life science. He has received several recognition, including the Nation Builders Award in the year 2023 and the Young Scientist Award in the year 2019 for his academic contribution. Sir, we warmly welcome you and invite you here. Now, stage is yours. Thank you.
ગોહિલ સાહેબને વિનંતી પણ કરશું કે થોડો ઓછો સમય લે, ભૂખ લાગી હશે બધાને. પણ આપણે ઘણા બધા મુદ્દા જોઈએ, એમાં એક મહત્વનો મુદ્દો હજી સાહિત્ય અને વિજ્ઞાન માં બાકી હતો, એ લોક સાહિત્ય અને વિજ્ઞાન, ફોક લિટરેચર એન્ડ સાયન્સ. સો સરને ખાસ એના માટે 15-20 મિનિટ સર લેશે, પણ આપણા લોક સાહિત્યમાં વિજ્ઞાન કેમ આવેલું છે તે ઉપર એ આપની સાથે વાત કરશે. Warmly welcome you.
Yeah, cordless. નહીં મેં જોયું ને કયા ફોલ્ડર ઓકે આવડી ગયા થઈ જશે પોઈન્ટર.
Hello, audible last please. Okay, thank you. So good noon to all of you, and today's topic very interesting. science and literature, and I already said it that environmental science and literature. Okay, so in this area, my interesting matter in this one is Gujarati છો ને આપ સૌ? How many people are from outsides? ગુજરાતી ન જાણતા હોય એવા કેટલા છે? ઓકે મિત્રો, આપણે રોજબરોજ ઘણું બધું ગાતા હોઈએ, વિચારતા હોઈએ, કામ કરતા હોઈએ, આપણે ગમે છે એવું બધું ઘણું બધું કરતા હોઈએ. આમાં કેટલા લોકો કવિતાઓની રચના કરે છે ઘરે? કવિતા લખતા હોય એવા કેટલા છે? હાથું ચોક્કર, બરાબર છે. ફાઇન, ઓકે. સો ફર્સ્ટ ઓફ ઓલ મારે તમને એવું કહેવું છે, મને થોડું મુવમેન્ટ જોશે એટલા માટે તમારી સામે આ ત્રીજો સેશન છે. મને બહુ આનંદની વાત છે કે એ લંચ પહેલાનો છે. લંચ પહેલાનો સેશન છે. હું ચોક્કસ ખાતરી સાથે તમને એવું કહીશ મિત્રો, આમાં કેટલા લોકો ગીરમાં ગયા છે? જંગલમાં, ગીર જંગલ જોયું હોય? સો ફાઇન, વેરી ગુડ, ઓકે. મિત્રો, કુદરતમાં તમે જાઓ ને જ્યારે પ્રોફેસર ગઢવી સાહેબે વાઇલ્ડ લાઈફ અને લિટરેચર ઉપર વાત કરી હશે કદાચ, તો મારે તમને પર્યાવરણ વિજ્ઞાન અને લિટરેચર એ કેટલું બધું જોડાયેલું છે આપણી સાથે. અને પર્યાવરણ એ વિજ્ઞાન છે, એન્વાયરમેન્ટલ સાયન્સ અને લિટરેચર આપણા શબ્દો છે ને, જ્યારે લખવાનું કાંઈ પણ શરૂ કરીએ ને ત્યારે મન ખુશ હોય છે. આ પહેલી વાત છે. Now I want to tell about the philosophy, psychology, the science and literature. These are aligned subject. આ બધું એક થાય.
Hello.
Hello. Science and literature share the same goal, to explore and understand the human experience and the nature world. So Stephen has given this and he was American, paleontologist and evolutionary biologist. He has given the very good statement regarding this one. મારે પર્યાવરણ અને વિજ્ઞાન વિશે અને સાહિત્ય વિશે એટલા માટે આ કહેવું છે કે હું એમની તમને એક બારડ સાહેબ મારી એમાં એક એલિમેન્ટ ઉમેરીને વાત કરવાની છે કે શબ્દ છે ને, ગીતાજીના રેફરન્સમાં એક વાત એવી કહી છે કે આપણે માણસ તરીકે આપણે દુનિયાની બધી જ બાબતોને 5 સેન્સેશનથી આપણે ગ્રહણ કરતા હોઈએ છીએ. 5. આજે બેઠા છો ને 1-2 કલાકથી આપણે સાંભળીએ છીએ ખાલી, બરાબર ને? આપણે કૃતિ નથી કઈ કરતા, આપણે સાંભળીએ છીએ ફક્ત. ધેટ ઇઝ અ વન વે. જો આપણું મન બરાબર નહીં એટેચ હોય તો આપણે ઘણું બધું ગેપ પડે છે એમાં. પહેલું જે છે 5, એટલે શરીરને સમજવું પડે. સાયટોલોજી. સાયટન્સ મીન્સ સેલ. બોડી આખું બ્રેનથી માંડીને મસલ્સથી માંડીને બનેલું છે ને આખું, એની અંદર બ્રેન એ સેલનું બનેલું છે. And the structural and functional unit of a body is a cell. બરાબર? આપ સૌને ખબર છે, આ બેઝિક છે. કોષ વિજ્ઞાનથી શરૂ કરી અને પ્રાકૃતિક વિજ્ઞાન સુધીનું જે લિંક છે ને એમાં લિટરેચર શરૂ થાય છે. શબ્દ પહેલું, બીજું સ્પર્શ, ત્રીજું રૂપ, રસ અને ગંધ. આ 5 રેફરન્સ આપણને ગીતાજીમાં આપ્યા છે. આ 5 દ્વારા આપણે બધી પ્રકૃતિનું જ્ઞાન આપણે ધારણ કરતા હોઈએ છીએ. મીન્સ વિજ્ઞાન એ છે કે જ્યારે આપણે બધું ગ્રહણ કરીએ છીએ ને ત્યારે બાયોટિક અને અબાયોટિક ફોર્મમાં લઈએ છીએ. હું તમે બેઠા છીએ આજે એકદમ અહીંયા આજુબાજુ બધું છે અબાયોટિક છે, એમાં લાઇટ પણ આવી જાય, આની અંદર ચેર પણ આવી જાય. જેમાં જીવ નથી એ બધું અબાયોટિક છે, જેમાં જીવ છે એ બધું બાયોટિક છે. ઓકે, નાઉ લિટરેચર બિટવીન ધેટ આપણે અબાયોટિકમાંથી પણ લઈએ છીએ, બાયોટિકમાંથી પણ લઈએ છીએ અને અબાયોટિકમાંથી પણ લઈએ છીએ. કેવી રીતે? 2 કમ્પોનન્ટ ખાસ ભણવામાં આવે છે એન્વાયરમેન્ટલ સાયન્સમાં. હું સીધો જ વિષય ઉપર એટલા માટે આવું છું કે લિટરેચરનો ઉદ્ભવ કેવી રીતે થાય છે, શબ્દ કેવી રીતે બને છે, રાઈટ? તો ગુજરાતીની અંદર જે કંઈ આપણે ખુશ હોઈએ ત્યારે આપણે ખુશ હોઈએ એટલે શું હોઈએ? તો ડોપામાઇન સિક્રેટ થાય છે, એટલે ખુશ હોઈએ છે. હોર્મોનની ગેમ છે આખી આપણા જીવનમાં, સમજી લેજો. ખુશ હોવું, નાખુશ થવું, રાઈટ, આ બધું જ આપણા હોર્મોનની સિક્રેશન ઉપર ડિપેન્ડ છે, આપણું મન સાથે જોડાયેલું છે. અને એટલે જ જળમાં હવે જડતું નથી, તટને તપાસીએ. કોણે લખ્યું છે? ચીનુ મોદીએ. બરાબર. જળમાં હવે જડતું નથી, તટને તપાસીએ, એ બિંબ શોધી કાઢવા મનને તપાસીએ. ફાઇનલી ગેમ ઇઝ ફ્રોમ માઇન્ડ. મારું કહેવાનું એ છે, આપણે બધા જ રસો જીવનની અંદર ધીમે 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 સમજતા હોઈએ છીએ. અને એમાં માણસના જીવનના જે બધા ભાવ રસો છે ને, એના રિપ્રેઝેન્ટેટિવ રસો કયા કયા છે ખબર? પ્રેમ રસ છે, વીર રસ છે, હાસ્ય રસ છે, કટાક્ષ ભાવ છે, પશ્ચાતાપ ભાવ છે, વિરહ રસ છે. આ બધા રસો છે જીવનમાં. બીજા ઘણા બધા છે, લિસ્ટ મૂકી શકાય એમ છે. બાળ સાહેબ, મારે અહીંયા એ કહેવું છે કે હવે હું આમનામ બોલી જાઉં ને એની બદલે થોડુંક તમને ગાઈને કહું ને એટલે એની અસર આવશે તમને. હમણાં જો ટેક્ટાઇલ કોમ્યુનિકેશનમાં વસંત ઋતુ ચાલે છે ને? કઈ ઋતુ ચાલે છે? વસંત. તો વસંતનો વૈભવ એવું આપણે કહીએ. જીઓલોજીકલ મેપિંગ જેને કહીએ અમારી બાયોલોજીની ભાષામાં, જીઓલોજીની ભાષામાં, તો કોઈ સ્થળ છે એનું એક્સપ્લેનેશન, એની મોર્ફોલોજીકલ પોઈન્ટ ઓફ વ્યૂ આપવું હોય તો સાયન્ટિફિક મેનરમાં ઘણું બધું બીજું કહી શકાય. પણ એને લિટરેચર ફોર્મમાં કહેવું હોય તો પ્રેમરસનો એક દુહો બહુ સરસ છે. એક પોતાની પ્રેયસીને કહે છે કે મારો પ્રેમ કેવો છે. હવે એને કોની સાથે સરખાવવું છે? એને કમ્પેરેટિવ ટર્મ્સ એની પાસે હોવી જોઈએ ને. તો પ્રકૃતિમાંથી મળે છે મિત્રો, યાદ રાખજો. આપણા બધા જ શબ્દો છે ને પ્રકૃતિ પ્રદાન કરે છે અને ત્યાંથી જ મેળવીએ છીએ, એટલું યાદ રાખજો. અને એટલે જ હવે હું એમાં થોડો ડીબી એડ કરીને તમારી સામે રજૂ કરું છું, જેને આપણે લોકસાહિત્ય કહીએ છીએ. ખ્યાલ આવી ગયો? લોકસાહિત્યમાં ઘણું બધું છે. દુહા છે, છંદ છે, લોકગીતો છે, લોકરાસ છે, ઘણા બધા છે, ઘણું બધું છે. રંગ રે કસુંબલ મેં તો કેસુડાનો લીધો. કેસુડા કેટલા લોકોએ જોયા છે? વાહ. હવે એ કલર છે ને, એ સાયન્ટિફિક એ છે કે એ પિગમેન્ટ જાય નહીં કોઈ દિવસ. તમે ગમે તેમ કલર કાઢો ને તો એને કેસુડાનો રંગ ઝડપથી જતો નથી, એટલો પાકો ને ઘાટો છે. એટલે પોતે એવું કહેવા માંગે છે, એને એવું કહેવું છે કે ભાઈ મારો રંગ કસુંબલ કીધો છે. કસુંબલ શબ્દનો અર્થ છે ને એ એકદમ નશો ચડે ને એ છે. કહુંબો લઈએ ને ગુજરાતીમાં કહીએ ને, અને કહુંબા પછીનો જે નશો છે ને, એવા નશાવાળી વાત એને અહીંયા કરવી છે. એટલા માટે રંગ રે કસુંબલ, મારો રંગ કેવો છે? કસુંબલ છે. અને ક્યાંથી લીધો છે? કેવો ઘાટો છે? તો એ પ્રકૃતિમાંથી આવ્યું છે. રંગ રે કસુંબલ મેં તો કેસુડાનો લીધો, લીલો તે રંગ વનની વનરાયું એ દીધો. હવે જો અહીંયા છે ને અવાજ ભળે છે ને જ્યારે શબ્દમાં, ત્યારે એની અસર ખબર પડે છે આપણને. એ રાગોનું વિજ્ઞાન છે. પ્રકૃતિના પણ રાગો છે. જલ તત્વના રાગો છે, આકાશ તત્વના રાગો છે. એ રાગ પણ આપણને શીખવાડે છે પ્રકૃતિ. એટલે લોકગીત, લોકભાષા એવી રીતે રચાય છે. લિટરેચર આપોઆપ અંદરથી શરૂ થાય છે, રાઈટ? લીલો રંગ મેં તો વનરાયું એ દીધો. લીલુંછમ જંગલ હોય ને એની અંદર લીલો રંગ આપણને ત્યાંથી પકડાય છે. ધેટ ઇમ્પેક્ટ કમ્સ ફ્રોમ ધેટ એલિમેન્ટ્સ, યુ નો. પીળો તે રંગ જોને ઉગતી પૂનમનો, તારલીએ ટાંકી નવરંગ ચૂંદલડી રે મારા, નખના પરવાળા જેવી ચૂંદડી ઓજી રે મારા, નખના પરવાળા જેવી ચૂંદડી. હવે આમાં ફિલ્ડ કર્યું હોય ને તો ખબર પડે કે પરવાળા એટલે શું. દે આર કોરલ્સ, યુ નો. દરિયાની અંદર જાઓ ને તમને જે પરવાળા મળે છે એ કોરલ્સ કહે છે ને, એનો કલર ટ્રાન્સપરન્ટ હોય છે. એટલે થોડો દૂધિયો, સાવ ટ્રાન્સપેરન્ટ પણ નહીં, સાવ વ્હાઇટ પણ નહીં. એક્ઝેક્ટ આ બતાવે છે ત્યાં. તમે વિચારો તો લોકગીતો લોક સાહિત્યના શબ્દો છે ને એ પ્રકૃતિમાંથી આવે છે. મારું એ મૂળ વિભાગના એન્વાયરમેન્ટલ સાયન્સનું વિજ્ઞાન એ અહીંયા છે. તમે લોકો લખવા બેસો છો ત્યારે પ્રોસેસ કેટલા, એટલે બ્રેન, વિચાર, મતલબ માઇન્ડ, ઇમેજિનેશન, હમણાં ફ્રિક્શન ઉપર વાત કરી ને, લિટરેચર હંમેશા ઇમેજિનેશન ઉપર ઊભું છે. કોઈ પણ ફિલ્મ બનાવે ને ત્યારે કેટલી વખત ફિલ્મ ડાયરેક્ટરના મનમાં ઉતરી જાય છે. then and then it comes in on screen, you know. તો આ અહીંયા કેસુડો અને રંગ ને મેં વાત એની તમને મેં થોડી હલક આપી છે, રાઈટ. અહીંયા લોક સાહિત્યનું લિટરેચર જે છે એ બધું દુહા, છંદ, પ્રભાતિયા સ્વરૂપે, લોકગીતો, લોક વાર્તાઓ, કહેણી પણ જુદી જુદી હોય છે. તમે લોકોએ અકુપાર વાંચ્યું હશે કદાચ, ધ્રુવ ભટ્ટ લિખિત. ઘણા બુકના રેફરન્સ હું તમને આપી શકું. તો ધ્રુવ ભટ્ટ લિખિત અકુપાર છે ને, એ અકુપાર તમારે કુદરતને જો વાંચવું હોય ને તો અકુપાર વાંચવું પડે, સમુદ્રાંતિ કે વાંચવું પડે. આ એવું વિજ્ઞાન છે કે આપણે ફિલ્ડમાં જઈએ ને ફિલ્ડમાં કશાક કુદરત સંદેશા આપે છે ને એ ઝીલીએ છીએ આપણે. that science make the impact on our mind. અને એ આપણી શબ્દની રચના સારી પડે છે. બસ ઘણી વખત આપણને પણ ખબર ન હોય, હો આટલું સુંદર આપણે લખી નાખ્યું. શબ્દો એ આપણી મનોવિભાવનામાંથી પકડાતા હોય છે. હવે અહીંયા દુહો છે ને, એ દુહો બહુ ટૂંકમાં ઘણું કહી દે એ ટાઈપનો છે. ફિલ્ડમાં જઈએ ને એટલે એમ કે તમારી સાઇટ કેવી છે, તો સાઇટની અંદર આપણે જો સાયન્ટિફિક રીતે કહેવું હોય તો એનું ઘણું બધું પહેલું કરી શકાય કે ભાઈ એ આ પ્રકારની લેન્ડસ્કેપને. પણ હવે તમે લોક સાહિત્યની ભાષાની અંદર મોર્ફોલોજીકલ લેન્ડસ્કેપ આખો એક્સપ્લેન કર્યો છે. વિચારો, પંચાળ પ્રદેશ જે છે એ પંચાળ પ્રદેશ કેવો છે? તો પંચાળ પ્રદેશને બહુ જૂના એક લેખકે, કવિએ ખૂબ સરસ રીતે શબ્દોમાં તળપદ ભાષાની અંદર કીધો છે. બોલો, એ જે સાયન્સમાં આવે છે અમારે. અને એ એવું છે, પંચાળ નામ કેમ પડ્યું? તો કારણ કે પાંચાલી ત્યાંની હતી, પંચાળ પ્રદેશની. અને એ પાંચાલી નો પંચાળ પ્રદેશનો એક નાનકડો દુહો, એટલે અહીંયા દુહાનો પ્રકાર કહું તમને હું, શબ્દોમાં કેવી રીતે આવે છે લિટરેચરમાં. કેજો ને કંકુ વર્ણી ભૌમકા ને સર્વો સાલે માળ. હવે આ ગુજરાતી સમજવા માટે પાછું એક આપણે ડિક્શનરી લેવી પડે. એટલું શબ્દ વિજ્ઞાન બદલાતું જાય છે. પરજો ને નરપટાધર, નરપટાધર નીપજે. હવે નરપટાધર આ શબ્દ પણ બહુ એકદમ રિઝિયોનલ છે, એટલે વીર લોકો ઉત્પન્ન થાય એવી ધરતી. અરે એ તો ભોય દેવ કો પાંચાળ, એ ભૂમિ પંચાળ. જો તમને આવું આવું દેખાય તો એ પંચાળ. અને હવે જીઓગ્રાફિકલ જે એક્સપ્લેનેશન છે કે આછા પાણી વીરડે, આછા પાણી વીરડે. એ વીરડો ગાળે ને તો એમાં પાણી આછા હોય, એકદમ ચોખા જેવા. કે જો આછા પાણી વીરડે ને ધરતી લાપડિયાળ. એ ધરતી લાપડિયાળ એટલે ત્યાં લાપણું બહુ ઉગે એવી ધરતી, એટલે ગ્રાસલેન્ડ એમ કે છે. પણ સરતી સરતી સરા સારસ લવે. સારસ પક્ષીઓ આ ધરતી ઉપર ઉતરે એટલે પક્ષી વિજ્ઞાન આપે છે અહીંયા. અરે ઈ તો પડ રે જુઓ પાંચાળ. અહીંયા આપણે આ સેકન્ડ લેંગ્વેજની અંદર આ દુહો જ્યારે જોઈએ છે ને ત્યારે આનો અર્થઘટન આપણે કરવું પડે એ રીતે લિટરેચર લોક સાહિત્યની અંદર રચાયા છે. ઘણી બધી વાતો. છંદ પ્રકાર જે છે, મારે સમય ઓછો લેવાનો છે પણ પ્રકાર ઘણા બધા છે. છંદ પ્રકારમાં ત્રિભંગી છંદ જે 3 ટુકડા પડીને કહે છે, એનું સાયન્સ ત્રિભંગી કેવી રીતે આવ્યું, 3 ટુકડા શા માટે? તો આપણા મનની જે પ્રક્રિયાઓ સમજવામાં છે ને એ લાઈન ટુ લાઈન કેવી રીતે સમજી શકીએ એટલા માટે ત્રિભંગી છંદ આવ્યો છે. 3 ટુકડા પડે. કે એક નાર નવેલી રૂપ નિહેલી, આ રીતે સમજાવે. ખ્યાલ આવ્યો? એક નાર નવેલી રૂપ નિહેલી, મારગડે હાલી જાતી હતી. હવે અહીંયા પ્રાસ સાથે મન સાથે એટલું એટેચ થઈ જાય છે કે આપણે બધું જ સમજાઈ જાય છે. આને કહેવાય ગાયકી. અને એટલા માટે જ મેં અહીંયા એવું કીધું છે કે જ્યારે શબ્દને છે ને નીચે તમે જુઓ, સાહિત્યના શબ્દોને કંઠ મળે ને એટલે એ ગાયકી બને છે. એક નાર નવેલી રૂપ નિહેલી, મારગડે હાલી જાતી હતી, આખ્યું અણિયાળી નીચું ઢાળી, ઘૂંઘટ મામલકાતી હતી. આમાં બધું સમજાતું જાય. મનડું મોયું દાલડું ખોયું ને, પહેલી નજરે પ્રીત થઈ. આ પ્રેમરસનો છંદ છે ત્રિભંગી. હસતા રમતા થઈ હેતની વાતો, ઈ વાતોમાં જીત થઈ રે ભાઈ, ઈ વાતોમાં જીત થઈ. આ છંદ પ્રકાર છે લોક સાહિત્યનો, પ્રકૃતિમાંથી આવેલો રાગ છે. અંતમાં ઘણા બધા અહીંયા તમે જો લોકનાટ્ય, ભવાઈ, લગ્ન ગીતો, કહેવતો, રૂઢિપ્રયોગો એ બધું છે. પણ એક વાત મારે તમને રેફરન્સ સાથે આપીને કહેવી છે કે જેની અંદર એક અંગ્રેજ સાયન્ટિસ્ટે પણ લિટરેચર માટે, લોક સાહિત્ય માટેનું બહુ સરસ એવું કોટ કર્યું છે. અને આમ જુઓ તો ઘણી બધી બુક્સ આપણી સામે છે કે જેની અંદર તમે પ્રકૃતિ વિજ્ઞાન અને લિટરેચર સીધું જ સમજાઈ જાય એવી પુસ્તકો છે ને, એ સમજવું પડે ને જોવું પડે. મિત્રો, રઢિયાળી રાત ઝવેરચંદ મેઘાણીએ જે લખ્યા છે એમાં પ્રકૃતિ ગીતો ખૂબ છે. અને પ્રકૃતિ ગીતની અંદર એ પ્રાણીઓનું બિહેવિયર હોય, એટલે બિહેવિયરલ સાયન્સ હોય કે પછી એ કાંઈ પણ માનવ અને પ્રાણી વચ્ચેનું જે આદાન પ્રદાન અને કોવિલેશન કહેવાય, સહ ઉત્ક્રાંતિ. તો એ સહ ઉત્ક્રાંતિ જે છે ને એ પણ ઝવેરચંદ મેઘાણીએ એના લિટરેચરના ફોર્મમાં મૂક્યું છે. અને આના માટે રઢિયાળી રાત આ પુસ્તક વાંચવું પડે અથવા તો જોવું પડે. એક છેલ્લો રેફરન્સ આપીને મારી વાત પૂરી કરીશ, કદાચ સમય મને આપ્યો છે એટલો છે. ગિરનાર કેટલા લોકોએ જોયું છે? ગિરનાર ચડ્યા હશો. પ્રકૃતિની અંદર ગિરનાર, જુનાગઢ જિલ્લો અને ગિરનારની જે આખું વર્ણન છે, ગિરનાર ઉપર ખૂબ પુસ્તકો લખાયા છે. જુનાગઢમાં દાતારનો ડુંગર છે ને, એની જે પ્રતિષ્ઠા છે ને, એની એ વેલા નામના એક કોળી સંત થઈ ગયા અને એનું નામ રૂખડ બાવો. અને રૂખડ બાવોએ 12 વર્ષ સુધી એણે ઉપવાસ કરીને ગિરનારની પ્રદક્ષિણા કરી. તમે હવે જોજો બરાબર અબાયોટિક ને કેવી રીતે પોતાના લિટરેચરમાં ઉતારે છે. 40 દિવસના ઉપવાસ પછી ઈસુ મહારાજના વંડાવણ ઘૂમી રહ્યા અને ભવ્ય ચિત્ર ક્રાઇસ્ટ ઇન વિલ્ડરનેસ, આ એણે લખ્યું છે. ક્રાઇસ્ટ ઇન વિલ્ડરનેસ એટલે વાઇલ્ડમાં કેવી રીતે ક્રાઇસ્ટ દેખાય છે એને. ગિરનાર એને પોતાના ધર્મની અંદર કેવો લાગ્યો છે એવું એક અલગ ધર્મના વ્યક્તિએ લખ્યું છે અને લિટરેચરમાં મૂક્યું છે મિત્રો. અને એ કેવી રીતે મૂક્યો છે તો એ જે રૂખડ બાવો છે, આટલી પ્રદક્ષિણા કરી છે, એ ગિરનાર છે, આજુબાજુમાં અબાયોટિક વનરાઈ ને બધું જે છે એ કેવો લાગે છે. ઇમેજિનેશન્સ નાઉ સ્ટાર્ટ્સ. કે રૂખડ બાવા તું હળવો હળવો હાલ જો. હવે આપણું ગુજરાતી એટલું બધું તળબત છે ને કે આને આટલું સાયન્સના અબાયોટિક ને આવી રીતે ઉતાર્યું છે ખબર જ નથી. ગરવાને માથે રે રૂખડિયો જળુંબિયો. હવે જળુંબિયો શબ્દનો અર્થ તમે કહેશો મને? જળુંબવું એટલે શું? ઉપર લટકવું. યસ. કેવી રીતે લટક્યો છે તો એને ઉપમા અલંકાર છેલ્લે 2 વાક્યમાં કહી દઉં. જેમ જળુંબે મોરલી માથે નાગજો. હવે કોઈ જાદુગર આવતા નથી, મોરલી વગાડતા નથી અને નાગ પણ જોવાતો નથી. નહીં તો મોરલી અને નાગ જો જોયેલું દ્રશ્ય હોય જીવનમાં તો આ શબ્દો સરી પડે. હવે એ દ્રશ્યો પણ રહ્યા નથી. બધું જ ગેમમાં આવી ગયું છે. વર્ચ્યુઅલ but the fact object we not observed. અહીંયા આજે લખાયું હશે કેટલા વર્ષો પહેલા લખાયું હશે, એણે વાસ્તવિક દુનિયાની સાથે અબાયોટિકને કેવી રીતે લિટરેચરમાં લીધું છે એની વાત મેં તમને અહીંયા કરી. જેમ જળુંબે કુવા માથે કોસજો, જેમ જળુંબે નરને માથે નારજો, અને જેમ જળુંબે ગોપી માથે કાનજો. આ બધા રૂપક અલંકારો છે. આ રીતે ગીતોની રચના અને લિટરેચરની રચના થઈ છે. ફાઇનલી each and everything is come from nature. If we want to think about, if we want to imagination, make the imagination, you go in nature. Finally, nature is our literature. Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you. કોઈ તમારે પ્રશ્ન પૂછવો હોય કે આ વિષયને સાહેબે હું બહુ ખાસ કહું કે આ બહુ હટકે વિષય છે આખો. ઘણી વખત આવા વિષયને લઈને બહુ જ અઘરું હોય છે, પરંતુ આ વિષયને લિટરેચર એન્ડ સાયન્સમાં એન્વાયરમેન્ટ સાયન્સ એન્ડ લોક સાહિત્ય આવા ટાઇટલ સાથે જે ફ્રેમ કર્યું એટલે બદલ અભિનંદન આપું છું સાહેબ, કારણ કે જનરલી આ વિષય ફાઇન્ડ આઉટ થતા હોતા નથી. આપને કોઈ પ્રશ્ન હોય કોઈને? અંગ્રેજીમાં તમે લખતા હશો એમ ગુજરાતીમાં તમે ટૂંકી ટૂંકી વાર્તાઓ અથવા તો શોર્ટ લખતા હશો તમે, બરાબર? આપણું ગુજરાતી જે ભાષા સાહિત્ય જે છે ને આખું, એ એક પણ શબ્દનો બદલાવ ન કરો છતાં પણ અર્થ બદલાઈ જાય ને એટલી એ સમૃદ્ધ ભાષા છે આપણી. હા, અને લિટરેચરની રચના આપણા બોલવા ઉપર છે. શબ્દોને બહુ લિમિટેશન છે, શબ્દો લખાય છે ને એનું લિમિટેશન છે, પણ એ કેવી રીતે બોલાય છે ને એનો મિનિંગ ત્યાંથી સ્ટાર્ટ થાય છે મિત્રો. જસ્ટ ફોર કાઇન્ડ ઇન્ફોર્મેશન. એટલા માટે શબ્દોને લિમિટ છે, મનોવિભાવનાને કોઈ લિમિટ હોતી નથી. એક જ શબ્દ જુદી જુદી ફ્રીક્વન્સીથી બોલાતો હોય છે તો અર્થ બિલકુલ એક્સ્ટ્રીમ નીકળે છે. સે ફોર એક્ઝામ્પલ, એક ગુજરાતી ફિલ્મ આવેલું અને એનું ટાઇટલ હતું ઓઢું તો ઓઢું તારી ચૂંદડી. ઓઢું તો ઓઢું તારી ચૂંદડી એટલે આપણે સહજ એવું જ સમજીએ કે એમાં એવું જ કહેવા માંગે છે કે ઓઢું તો તારી ચૂંદડી ઓઢું, એમ ને? જો હવે એક પણ શબ્દોનો ફેરફાર નહીં કરો અને જો બોલવાની ફ્રીક્વન્સીમાં આરોહરોમાં ફરક કરો તો બિલકુલ એક્સ્ટ્રીમ અર્થ નીકળે. ઓઢું તો ઓઢું તારી ચૂંદડી. બીજું, ઓઢું તો ઓઢું. થેન્ક યુ.
Thank you, sir. I think from morning till now, all of us have, gained the insight that most of our thoughts regarding scientific inquiry emerged from the basic impulses of our life itself. So then, thank you so much, everyone, all the attendees, all our invited guests, experts. Sir, we warmly thank you on everybody's behalf. And now we will part for lunch, and afterwards we will have the parallel paper reading sessions. All the participants, and particularly the presenters who are going to share their research papers, are requested to have their lunch as quickly as possible, so then they can reach the respective rooms on time, and we can start the reading sessions at 2:30. Thank you, everybody.